Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Zeigler. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We've got Jackson Franklin with us today. So, Jackson, tell us a little bit about your origin story.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, first off.
Well, yeah, absolutely. People want to hear from you.
Yeah. So, I'm 26 years old. I'm from Muncie, Indiana. I'm a combat medic in the Indiana Army National Guard and a registered paramedic that's worked on the ambulance. And I'm running in District 5 for this 2026 election, running against Victoria Spartz, who's our current congressperson. And yeah, we're just trying to fight for the working class, give working people a voice. I started this campaign more than a year ago, right after Trump won and Victoria Spartz won. I basically was pushed to run and, by the people around me in the space because we just keep on having diet Republicans running as our Democratic Party. And we want to basically take back what it means to be a Democrat, untethered from corporate donors, fighting for things that are very popular like Medicare for all, ending the genocide, strong unions, unapologetically fighting for women's rights, trans rights, immigrant rights, human rights across the board. And basically no one was stepping up to the plate. So we're leading a grassroots movement to do exactly that.
Right. So this podcast is primarily for people in the autism community and in the disability community. And being that you're a veteran, let's talk a little bit more about the disability that you have seen firsthand, friends that you have, like with the VA, for example, because right now the VA is a shit show.
Yeah.
And, here these people have given the ultimate sacrifice. Some have lost limbs, some come back with PTSD and all that. And I just think right now it's a very timely conversation considering that there's a push to put boots on the ground in Iran. So give us all of the thoughts on that.
So yeah, I've obviously have a lot of experience with veterans being disabled, and the government is doing nothing to help them. And on that note of the VA, with the big billionaire bill, as I call it, they cut the VA by 83,000 jobs. These are therapists, psychiatrists, yellow ribbon programs, so military to civilian jobs transition programs, and the veteran suicide rate is already skyrocketing because of these programs getting cut or already not being funded. And people such as Victoria Spartz and Congressman Mesmer voted to defund these things. Also, there's a thing called the PACT Act, which made sure that veterans exposed to Agent Orange and toxic burn pits overseas in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, places Congress sent them there to the first place, but when they come back, they can't even give health care. The PACT Act was just giving health care to the people exposed to those elements. And they voted no, twice, against it. We need to take care of the people that take care of us. And also, we need to have mental health care for all in this country, especially the people that Congress, our government, is sending overseas to do see the most horrendous things on the planet. Also, I might add, with Iran, it's illegal. I mentioned Congress has the powers of, war powers. Congress didn't vote to send us to Iran, right? And now there's more than 7 people dead. I strongly believe that's a hidden number. I believe there's much more dead, and there's at least 150 injured as of Reuters special reporting this morning. And but they're not telling us this. We need to get out of this illegal offensive war in Iran. It's obviously just at the behest of Israel. It's obviously because Benjamin Netanyahu has dirt on Trump in regards to Jeffrey Epstein. This is the most compromised president in American history. When a foreign nation can tell our president, and he never says no to them, he's never said no to the state of Israel. He serves them before he serves us, his own people, accordingly, supposedly.
Right. And, you're not officially campaigning here because we're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And because we're two people that come from military families, even though I'm not a veteran myself, but you are. I thought it was really important to have these more embedded conversations because I agree with you. I think there are a lot of people currently sitting in Congress right now that are taking dirty money and therefore are influenced by things.
And APAC.
Yeah, there's APAC, there's oil, even the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, we can talk about that. When these vets come back and then they have problems and they're decreasing funding, they're limiting their access to their therapist, they're making them jump through hoops with drugs and stuff like that. The reason I say that is because my aunt was a nurse at the VA and she's since retired. So, I think it's really important for the American people to be hearing from potential candidates right now that are normal people, of the people, are walking the walk, living that life actually, that can speak from lived experience. So let's go farther into your origin story, because I just found out recently that you're a triplet.
Yeah. Yeah, our birthday was yesterday, and, my mom is the strongest woman I know. I say this everywhere. I love my mom unapologetically. She not only gave birth and raised triplets, basically single-handedly, she also has 2 other children, my older brother and older sister, who are also amazing role models for us. But all credit in the world goes to her, amazing human being. And yeah, I mean, we're all on the same page when it comes to, issues we've discussed so far.
And I saw a picture that all 3 of you guys were in the armed forces.
We are all still in the, actually,
Still active.
Yeah, we're National Guard.
Okay.
So, yeah, and my brother Julian, the one that looks more like me, we actually deployed overseas together in Kosovo just a couple years back. And, that was labeled as a combat zone. And
what did they send you for whenever you got your orders to go?
It was, it's just a peacekeeping, as a NATO peacekeeping mission in the Balkans. Kosovo is in an area, the Balkans, southeastern Europe, where it was old Yugoslavia. And we are there to this day because of the genocide that was ongoing in 1998 into 1999. Bill Clinton sent NATO he asked the UN to send it. Russia is a UNSC member, United Defense Council. And they denied it. So then NATO was like, all right, well, there's a genocide ongoing. And Bill Clinton said, we're going to destroy the Serbian war machine and liberate the people, basically. Now, is there other interest involved? Sure. But also there's, I do generally agree with hey, we should stop ethnic cleansing as they begin and not years after the fact, supporting their bombs. So at least on this one case, compare it to today with what's going on in Gaza, I agree full-heartedly with me. I love being there. And both sides, Serbians and Kosovar people, absolutely loved us Americans because we were creating that space, that buffer between them. And yeah, I agree with that. And basically, the borders are still messed up to this day. Everyone basically generally understands where the borders should be, and then where they are.
How valuable do you think it would be to have candidates that have either spent a significant amount of time in Europe or in another country to be currently sitting in Congress? How valuable do you think that sort of lived experience would be when Congress is hearing they're hearing comments, they're making policy that would affect war and would affect veterans?
I think having knowledgeable lawmakers on issues is tremendously important. A lot of Americans don't realize how bad we have it. You can go anywhere, basically in Europe, mostly for the most part, and get healthcare because they see healthcare as a human right. Out of 33 developed nations on the planet, America is the only one of them that does not guarantee healthcare to all people as a human right. For us, it's a profit motive. They have big health insurance. And it also comes down to we are uniquely corrupt in the Western world, I'll say. And, as a paramedic that has served on the ambulance, we mentioned the veteran community, I've taken veterans that did not have health insurance from the hospital back to their homes to die because they didn't have any health insurance. And they would rather die, sacrifice themselves for their families, than put their families in medical debt because they knew that their families wouldn't be able to pay that debt. That is a deeply immoral system. People who wore the uniform with pride and already sacrificed their lives, now coming back home and actually dying because of a system that prioritizes the wealth of the parasitic billionaires and not the people it's supposed to represent in the first place. So having that experience of seeing the rest of the world have things like healthcare, paid family leave, guaranteed sick leave, all these other things, universal daycare, free school lunches, all these things that other countries they've had for decades. JFK back in the 60s says we are far behind this level of care compared to our European allies. We need to have a system that is a single payer system. This was back in the 60s. And, Reverend, Jesse Jackson, when he ran for president, both times, he was campaigning on a Medicare for all system. This fight is not new. This fight is continuing, and it's getting stronger and stronger. We're at a point right now where 70% of the nation, working class people, amongst Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, 70% of the nation wants Medicare for all. That means there's a huge divide and huge disparity between what we, the electorate, us working people want, and what DC does. And it all comes down to money and politics and, the big health insurance lobbying our politicians. So yes, that experience of knowing the known world, impacting foreign policy decisions, and also bringing, though you don't have to reinvent the wheel, bring those policies back to serve the people you're supposed to represent.
100%. I was a flight attendant for 17 years. I was a French speaker. I was constantly either in Paris, Geneva, or Brussels.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to see how the public transport system works, education, healthcare, all of that. I studied in France a couple times. I actually had my twins in South Africa. I lived in Ireland. So the reason I'm asking you this is because I know exactly where you're going with this. When Americans leave the U.S. and they have the opportunity to see how these systems work, and then that critical thinking pops in, they think, well, why aren't we doing this here? And why can't we use these other places for a model? So I agree with you. I think that's it's an excellent resource to use our allies abroad to see how they're doing things and then replicate those things that are working here.
Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
If Finland has the highest education, or I believe it's Finland, somewhere in Scandinavia, they are the happiest nation on earth. Let's analyze it. What's the root causes? Well, I believe they've eliminated houselessness. They just invest public resources in building homes, shelter, apartment complexes, subsidized housing to get people off the streets because they are prioritizing more so than us, working class people. Now, every nation has its own issues. I'm not saying any nation's perfect,
sure,
but they are definitely further on the road of taking care of working class people, not just that top 1% that owns our politics, especially.
Mm-hmm. I found it really interesting whenever I was in France. They have a Ministry of Water. Were you aware of that?
No, I did not know.
Yeah. And actually, they have an app. I'll have to check and make sure that that's still the case. But at the time, they had an app that anybody could use to find all of the free water fountains in Paris.
Good.
They have, you can go up to stations and get fresh water or sparkling water. Just fill up a jug.
Having water is a human right.
Yeah, it's just cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And they have an egalitarian system whenever it comes to their election system where each presidential candidate gets the same amount of public airtime. So let's say you wanted to go on any of the main news sources in Indiana, for example, and then one of your opponents got more time than you, they would have to bring you back on to give you the same amount of time so the public can see everybody as equals at the beginning.
That's amazing. I actually really like that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that to say, I think that we've been indoctrinated and propagandized for too long, and it would behoove us to put regular people like you in these positions for Congress that have had an opportunity to see the world and can bring that open-mindedness and that critical thinking back into the office.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. 100%.
So let's dive a little bit more into some questions. I got some questions for you.
Fire away.
All right. Inquiring minds want to know, of course.
Yeah.
People found out that I was going to be having a chat with you, and they're like, oh, ask him this. Right. So what inspires your firebrand of politics? Some people say that is the wrong approach, and that you'll need to moderate in Congress. What do you say to that?
The reason I'm a steam firebrand or very passionate about this issue is because we're talking about human lives. Whether it's the genocide ongoing in Gaza, whether it's having a healthcare system that because, talking about healthcare, I'll use that as an example. I have that lived experience. I know, talk about an experience that radicalizes you. It's taking your heroes to their house to die. And I know that more than 120,000 Americans die every year due to lack of health insurance. It's not just the people that I've met. It's not just veterans. It's people all across this country. And I know if we have an APAC candidate in Victoria Sparks or even maybe a Democratic person that is aligned with them, real human beings die. So if you're not fighting every fiber of your, existence for the right cause, you're not articulating a good argument and rallying the people for a message that prioritizes people over profits, Of course I'm going to be firebrand. To me, it's like, of course. And like, once you get in Congress, you got to fight for the people. You can't, the choice, the fascists on the other side want you to compromise on this. What leeway are you going to give fascism? If the choices are between democracy and fascism, the right answer is not, I'm going to meet them down the middle. The answer is fight for democracy, kick their ass in their own district, and fight for the people's policy that you were elected to serve in the first place. So yeah, I am firebrand in the sense that I keep saying it. Unapologetic. I'm not going to say sorry for wanting healthcare, a thing that other nations have done since right after World War II. You should say sorry for killing hundreds of thousands of Americans over the decades, all for your corporate donors. In fact, I think we should bring back second Nuremberg trial. I view them as murderers. A war is getting fought on this country, but it's not like affecting rich and poor all the same. No, it's us working poor people that die. It's not the billionaire class that are just having such a tough time with their healthcare system. It's us. I've seen it firsthand. So the way we organize this country and the way we take back this country from the Republicans, if the goal is just to defeat the Republicans, all right, look at Indiana. We keep on throwing up these corporate Democrats, these so-called Democrats. We're going to defeat and they keep losing, by the way.
Yeah.
The state has been run for like the last 20 years by Republicans. We're going to defeat the Republicans, not by throwing up diet Republicans, corporate Democrats. We're going to win when we fight like Democrats are supposed to fight and fight for the working class and not the donor class. We're going to win on popular issues by being passionate, by rallying the people. That is the job of both the party and the candidates at every single level, is to organize. It is a tool to organize change and affect that change in the legislative body. Once in Congress, yeah, I mean, like, if it's like, yo, how can you get anything done? How are you going to compromise and shake deals? There are some things, if it's like, hey, I believe in a corporate tax rate, effective rate of 40% of corporations that make above this amount. Oh, and they believe it's 39. It's not going to be like hard line on like single percent. Let's get stuff done for the greater good. But if it's like going to be an issue that like the fascists are saying, let's remove gay rights or women's rights or, special needs ability, like funding, I'm not meeting them halfway. They're not going to get anything done. We're taking back power. I'm not going to sell out the people that I've been fighting for the sake of fascist. No, like we can debate inside the party about like what the tax rate should be. And if it's incremental, like, hey, as long as good policy is getting passed, we're working towards a goal. Mm-hmm. As far as like, because there are people in here that are in Congress that genuinely want to kill you. They genuinely don't care if you live or die as long as their bottom line is being upheld. So on that note, I hope we get more firebrands, and you see it across the nation. I'm in organizations that are like organizing all of us grassroots progressives to be more firebrand. I want to see more like that.
No, you're good. Along those lines of progressives, because there's a lot of people right now that are claiming that they're progressives. What does progressive mean to you?
Progressive means to me where you're fighting for a system that represents all people and not just the top 1%. Not there's some basically my filter. Mm-hmm. You're not progressive if you support genocide or deny genocide. If there is a candidate that is running for Congress, let's say, and they don't acknowledge that the UN has declared what's going on in Gaza as a genocide, or they don't think healthcare is a human right, they're not fighting for a single-payer system, whatever that system is. Medicare for all is one option for a single-payer system, but they think that there should be a corporate paywall between you and your doctor. All right, you're not a progressive. If you throw trans people under the bus, if you throw gay people, if you throw immigrants under the bus for I'm moving to the middle, you're not in the middle. You're to the right. If everyone agrees that healthcare should be a human right, like 70% of the nation, that is the centrist option. Everything outside that, you're an extremist. So basically, progressivism is trying to make the Democratic Party a working class party and give a home to the political homeless. They don't have a party. We have two right-wing parties, ensnared by corporate interest, and that's why it never seems like anything gets done. No matter what color the house is, it's always, we got to serve the corporate interest. So progressive is just fighting for the working class. There are certain policies, as I mentioned, that are like the easy things you first catch, but it's a lot of things. It's basically just fighting for the people. And yeah.
Would you consider yourself an advocate and or an activist?
Yes. 100% yes. I've been fighting for a variety of issues for a long time now, ever since 10 years ago Bernie Sanders won this state, and I had the pleasure. I was 16 years old.
I was going to say you were awfully young then.
Yeah, and I knew the system was messed up. I knew it wasn't working for working people, but he opened our... I didn't, as we were talking earlier, I didn't realize how bad we had it, and I thought we were like, oh, we're pretty much on par with the rest of the... No, we are like behind most nations right now. So as far as the activist space, I've been in that space for the last 10 years now. I never thought I was going to be a candidate, of course, but yeah, I've been fighting for a lot of different issues, whether it comes to healthcare, money in politics, women's rights, and many other things. I would see myself as an activist, yeah.
Okay. How valuable do you think it would be to have people that self-identify as advocates and activists in positions in Congress?
Very valuable. In fact, I think if you're a congressperson and you don't see yourself as an advocate for policy, you're wrong. Now, that might not be good policy, but you're an advocate for something. Whether it's, Wall Street or Big Pharma or, other nations even. You're an advocate. You have the power of the pulpit, so, yeah, it's who you use that power to represent and serve. That's all that really matters. You got to advocate. Now, I advocate for the working class. Mm-hmm. I advocate for the, if there's a single person oppressed, we are all in chains kind of mindset, as, Eugene V. Debs said. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say whether they realize it or not, they are using their powers to affect change. It depends on whether it's that good or bad, if that helps us or them.
What do you think that candidates that are running right now should say to people or the establishment that would criticize them for speaking publicly, say, about issues like Iran or issues like human rights or trans rights or anti-military policies, for example?
I think now is the best time to do it. I think right now is the time to speak up because, we're big in the protest scene. When human rights are under attack, stand up, fight back. You don't cede ground to them. If they have trans people under the scopes and they're firing everything they got at them, that's not the time to be like, oh, that's a touchy subject now. That's the best time to stand up unapologetically and stand for those people. Stand in solidarity with your friends, your neighbors, and just have empathy for your fellow human beings. If it comes down to war with Iran, now is the time to stand up. If it comes to we have masked thugs, terrorists on the streets murdering our people. Now is the time to talk about real immigration reform, not the ones that Biden did, where he basically kept all Trump's policies and he tried to have a conservative border plan. Now is the time to represent the people. And you have to fight. You have to give that, it's not just up to the politicians to fight for what's popular. It's on the politicians to make popular what is right. We have to, Medicare for all, I don't know what it was polling at before Bernie, maybe like 50%, maybe less. But now it's at 70% because he gave a voice to it. At least shined that voice. It was one of many, among many other people that were fighting. And it's up to us as candidates, as people, advocates, activists, and many other people in the space to stand up for the oppressed people. Because who else is going to do it? Are we just going to let them die? We all are quite familiar with the poem. First, they came for the socialist. Mm-hmm. Then they came for the trade unionist. Mm-hmm. Then they came for, but I did not speak out. And eventually it gets down to, then they came for me, but no one else was left standing. So we have to stand up right now, not just for self-preservation. In my case, I'm not doing it just to eventually they're going to come for me. It's because you should have basic human empathy. But even if you don't, you should realize they're going to turn their guns on you eventually. They're going to fight. There's always an outgroup. There's always a minority group that they're going to target. That's authoritarianism 101. It's trans people today. It's immigrants today. There's been women for a long time. It was gay people. It's been gay people. 10 years ago or 11 years now. The senators that are in power right now that voted no on gay rights are still in power. Mm-hmm. And it's the same people that are finding their new scapegoat. The same different problem. So yes, right now is the time to speak out.
What do you think the value is of having people of minorities, various minorities represented in Congress?
It's very important. I think it's quite important because it shows like, hey, with hard work, you can get there. And it's representation. It's supposed to be democracy. It's a representative, democracy. So having groups that are historically marginalized in places of power, the halls of power, it's just fair for one. Like, give them a voice, give all people a voice, and in whatever background they may have. And also, it's important for people to have leaders that could, their perspectives are valuable. Like, they know what it's like to be under the scope, as I say. And they know the history more so than perhaps people in other communities. We all bring our skills, our perspectives, and our mindsets and our views to the situation. And having more insight into situations is always good. And it's just democracy. I mean, what else can I say? It's equity.
Right. As a white man, straight white man?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I figure we might as well go here. When we're talking about minorities and stuff. What do you think is unique about you as a white, straight man that people should put you in office over the other people that are running? What attributes do you think that you bring to the table that you could truly represent people of minorities in your district?
Because I'm going to fight tooth and nail for these rights. I am of the group that's dominated American politics for so long, and in the sense of that's my demographic, right? That's I'm not I'm not them, but at the same point, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail. In the people of this race, and even outside of it, I'm gonna fight just as hard for every other group as I am for just class politics. Mm-hmm. I am very passionate about equal rights for all. Women's rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. We have the new Jim Crow era. They're targeting black voters, Latino, immigration rights, everything. I'm going to fight 10 times harder. That's just by my nature. That's just who I am. So whatever my I guess my demographics are, just know my policies are there. I wear them on my sleeve. You never have to guess where I stand on an issue because I'll probably tell you without you even asking. So I am fighting for these rights. I'm fighting for, the things that we all care about. Not because, it personally affects the people around me, sure. But as I mentioned, I have empathy for others. I see myself in other people, and I care for the human race more so than just fighting for certain specific groups. I'm fighting for all of us. It goes back to, if there's a single person in chains, we are not free. Mm-hmm. I will not rest until we are all free and we are liberated and have the rights we should have had at our birth. It should have been this way. It should have been our vision for a very long time now. We got to push back against the forces of evil. And that's what I bring to the table.
It would seem that you have a large influence of women around you because you keep bringing up women. Do you think there is a significant moment in your background with women that potentially were influencing you that led you down this road to politics?
Down to politics?
If you could think back, for example, because we all have origin stories and we all have moments in our past that had significant impact on us. Yeah. And you keep speaking about women. You mentioned that you have a good relationship with your mom, yeah, and that you have a good relationship with your sister. How much of an influence do you think maybe your mom and your sister or other women that you have admired throughout time have really helped lead you down this path of advocacy?
Well, I think they've definitely every influence impacts everybody, right? So my mom being a caring person, teaching me these values of empathy and seeing yourself in other people, and my sister as well, both of them nurses, both of them coming from the healthcare background. And yeah, that definitely shapes who I am. Great teachers all throughout my life, great role models, women leaders that have built who I am today. And I am forever thankful for the strong women that I've had in my life. And just social advocates, people who role models, such in politics, even if I haven't even met them in person, AOC when she won in 2018 in New York, against all odds, a Latino woman fighting for the working class. Just, hey, this is her message, and she got it done, and she's fighting for the Green New Deal, Medicare for all these things. That has an impact on us. And I have so many role models. That's why, like, I stutter for a second. I'm like, where do I even start? But it definitely plays a role in my politics of like how I got to the position I am. And yeah, they're great. They're amazing people, obviously, that have been in my life. And yeah, I'm thankful to that.
Are there any historical figures, for example, that were women in particular in politics that come to mind for you that you think were very instrumental in shaping your view on domestic or international world politics?
Harriet Tubman, 100%. And I grew up Quaker. She, the Underground Railroad.
Quaker.
Yeah, I grew up
That tells a lot, actually.
the Friends Church,
Okay.
see the light of God in every single person. Now, I do not practice religion at right now. But
We should talk about that a little bit more, though, because the Quakers were instrumental in the Underground Railroad.
That's
movement with suffrage.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was making that, and they led the Underground Railroad right alongside Harriet Tubman, and that's why like I grew up with with these stories. Like you're like,
Were both of your parents Quakers?
My mom was, yeah.
Okay, so your founding influence,
yeah,
that helped shape you as a politician, was a female and a Quaker that believed in human rights for all.
Yeah, I would say so.
Pretty significant.
Yeah, that's like what I've grown up my whole life, and I even people. Quakers on the larger whole are seen as the more progressive denomination of Christianity, or at least one of the more, at least historically, when it comes to the Underground Railroad. And then I guess what separated me out of when I was about like 15, 14-ish, is because, hey, there were people in the church, the specific church I was at, the specific one, that were like very anti-gay. And I did not mesh well with that. I pushed back against that, and that's kind of like what led me down that path of, and I didn't even have like any like, exactly close gay friends at that time. I just, I was like, well, that's pretty messed up. Like, why would you say that? And so that kind of is what pushed me out. So you built up this empathy for all people, and then you didn't practice what you preach, literally. So I guess I was following the messages more so of Jesus, even ironically enough, if that pushed me away from the church, following the lessons of like, what sick person would Jesus deny healthcare to? What hungry person would Jesus not give food to? What houseless person would he not give shelter? What love would he not give to any person on the planet? So that's kind of the lessons that I have with me, even if I'm not quite religious. And that's kind of what I grew up. That's my earlier on, like in my teenage years, the developing foundation of, right before, having Bernie Sanders influence me, and I've been feeling the burn ever since for the last 10 years. That's kind of what built me up to that position where I'm at today.
That's very interesting. We kind of share that. I was not raised as a Quaker, but I went to church probably like 3 times a week. I was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, all this stuff. And I was also very much an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. And I was in choir, and I was in theater and madrigals and all this stuff where there were a lot of gay people. And I always found myself advocating. It always rubbed me the wrong way whenever I would see people treated differently, because I also thought, it violates the tenets of the religion. So I also separated from the church, and then I found out that I was gay. So that made a lot of sense why I was such an advocate. And I've gone in and out of churches trying to, find that connection to my faith over the years. And I just find that really significant that you say that, because I don't think you're alone in that. I think there are a lot of people that grew up in the church right now that have a grounding in religious faith that is guiding their principles. And then when when the rubber meets the road, when it comes to issues like homelessness, the LGBTQ plus community, especially the struggles of the trans community right now, I think that's significant. Would you like to say anything else, maybe particularly to the trans community or the immigrant community?
Just know that you have a place, like, no matter how much scrutiny you have and how much hate you get online, know that people love you just for the simple fact that you exist. Some people may say they hate you simply because you exist, but I promise the forces of love are always there for you, and you always have a place with us. You have friends. If we can find you or you can find us, you are allowed to be who you are. You should live in a society that does not persecute you for being who you are, but should love you for being who you are. So just know that the dark time, like we are living in some dark times right now, but there is always light at the end of the tunnel, and change will come if we dare to fight for it together.
So jumping back to Sparks, if we're going to talk about interesting things, I always found it quite interesting that she's Ukrainian and yet she supports the war. She supports the aggression, particularly in Ukraine. What are your thoughts on?
So this is what I say about Victoria Sparks all the time. She doesn't make any sense. Like, as you mentioned, she's, it's oxymoron. She's a moron too, but she's a immigrant who does not support other immigrants. At her town hall last year, she said criminals do not deserve due process. Hint, she was just talking about the brown ones, the ones coming from the southern border. She's racist. And she's a woman that does not support women's rights. She's endorsed by like Pro-Life America. She's a Ukrainian, as you mentioned, that does not support Ukraine. She says that Donald Trump is the only man on the planet that can create a fair peace for Ukraine. All of these things are contradicting each other, of course. But something that does make perfect sense is that she's a millionaire that does anything in her power to represent and fight for the interest of the other millionaires and billionaires, also known as her large corporate donors. So what we are pushing back against is we're going to topple that corporate power with people power. Something that Victoria Sparks and I have in common is that we're both fighting for the class we belong to. She is fighting for the ruling class, the millionaires and billionaires, and I am fighting for us working class people. And that's why we're going to win come November 3rd. And, we talk about gay rights, we talk about veterans. Victoria Sparks in 2022 voted against interracial marriage and gay rights. She did not want to codify it into the Constitution. She voted against it. That is immediately disqualifying for someone who's running to represent you, to represent anybody in this nation. The fact that she is getting lobbied heavily by conservative interest groups that goes against the people of her district. Do you not think that there are trans people, gay people, interracial couples in her district? How does she have the audacity to spit in our face to vote against having equal rights codified into the Constitution? That's why we must replace her. And I don't say this lightly. I don't just throw this out to anyone who disagrees with me slightly. She is an evil person. She is set to kill us working class people, all while taking away our rights every step of the way. That's why this election is literally life and death. If she is allowed to win again, countless people will die. Not just in Gaza, not just in Ukraine, not in Iran, which she also voted for, but here at home. She votes against healthcare. She voted for the big, beautiful bill, which cut 18 million people's Medicaid access, that gutted 21 million families off their food stamp access, that cut $330 billion from student loans, hurting our young people and people that are just, have college debt, right? We need to fight back with people power, and we need to organize the working class into a grassroots movement to question power, not just fall flat by one loud phone call from President Trump, as she did. We need to fight. We need to have fighters that fight for us and not against us.
Mm-hmm. We were having a conversation earlier, which I think we agree on, but I think it would be an important conversation to have for people. What are your thoughts on a wealth cap for Congress members and term limits?
I feel very strongly about having term limits. I took the U.S. for term limits pledge where, hey, if 3 terms, you should only be in the House, 3 terms in the House, total of 6 years, and just 2 terms for Senate. Now, I take that pledge and I feel like, hey, 1 term in the Senate is still a long time, but hey, I exceed expectations for their pledge. So I feel very strongly we need to have a constitutional amendment to have term limits. When you have politicians who have been there since the 1980s, like Nancy Pelosi, for example, we need fresh ideas. People should be voting based off policies and ideology to push the nation forward, not personalities. Like when one person has such a hold on power and name recognition and they're reusing the same signs year and year, they build up moneyed interests and they come out the other side millionaires when Congress people only make about $170,000 a year. Something in the system's fundamentally broken. So, and as far as a wealth cap, you make too much, you can't represent working people. I like the notion of it. I guess I'd have to look into it. I'm very interested by that. I also feel like everyone should be able to run, no matter what. That's democracy. I just feel like it's on us working class people to fight back against, like, if a billionaire decides to. I also think that they should not use their personal money to flood campaign. That's why if we had, sweeping campaign finance reform, I would not care if a millionaire, because they're fighting with the same resources that we have. Mm. Supposedly, like, you're supposed to. I want public financing of our election. I want to ban corporate PACs, super PACs, and basically that's just where everyone has a voucher. Like, if you get $200 for the primary and then after primary, and you could spend it on, like, oh, this is my $100 to my favorite presidential candidate, $25 to my favorite Senate candidate, and $25 to my House candidate, or state level too. That's how it should be, and then it's really a actual popularity contest. The more popular you are, the more people are going to give their little voucher, their public financing to. And then I would not care if, a millionaire was running with the same tools we have. But right now, as it stands, they are allowed to dump unlimited amounts of money in the race. And that's not fair. It's hurting us working people. It drowns out the voices of us working class people. So until we have a fair system, I understand why that would be a popular position. Citizens United, 2010 Supreme Court case, is destroying politics. They equated corporate money in our elections as freedom of speech. Money equals free speech. Well, in that case, whoever has the most money has the loudest voice in our democracy. And that's not democracy, that's an oligarchy. It's rule of the rich, rule of the powerful. So we need to move it back to the people.
I'm going along with those things exactly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the war in Iran and the endless foreign aid to Israel.
We need to pull out immediately, and we need to pay for the damages. That's not a popular thing for a politician to say, hey, let's pay for stuff overseas. We murdered 175 little schoolgirls in southeast Iran, and we also bombed a school in Tehran. I actually don't even know the casualties for that, but we've bombed multiple schools. That's on us. Germany was I think they just now, like this decade, finished off paying debts for World War II. They Paris, Warsaw, London, all across the world. We are the terrorist state of the day. Israel is a terrorist state. They fund genocide. We fund genocide. They commit it. And sometimes we even help. So yes, we need to stop funding Israel immediately. We need to stop bombing Iran immediately. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. The Ayatollah, bad guy. All right. I'm not a fan. We don't have the right to murder him. Not constitutionally here at home, and not internationally. We're supposed to have a rules-based order, but what this conflict proves is that it was all just a farce. The UN is now the league of what was it? The before the UN. It was League of Nations. It's basically it proved Israel and America have been proving that, like, the international law doesn't mean anything. The Geneva Conventions don't mean anything. Who's going to uphold it? Does the UN have any teeth? They don't. All right, well, like, we're one of the 5, permanent security member people on the council. Russia, China, America, France, and the UK. We are, like, the biggest forces of imperialist. Like, those 5 countries are, like, the reason they got there is because they're imperialist. And even, like, I'm not a tanky. Like, China.
What do you mean by this?
Is like people who disagree with the West so much they end up siding with other dictatorships. Okay. But China right now, in a year from now, they're going to invade Taiwan in 2027. But as of right now, they're not, like, actively bombing the Middle East. They're doing a thing called the Belt and Road Initiative. And they basically own all of Africa by investing. It's like what the Marshall Plan was in post-World War II America, where we built up these post-Axis nations, and that's why there's such a strong German and Italian and Japanese automotive industry. It's because we built them up, and then they allied with us in the United States. That's what China's doing. So, like, out of the 5, permanent members, China's the one that's investing, and we're the ones destroying them down. But yeah, ultimately, back to the question, We need to stop funding Israel. We need to pay for the damages. There needs to be a free and independent Palestine. And we need to have, at least for now, until we get to a, one free Palestine, we need to have a two-state solution with the UN that actually has teeth, with a UN peacekeepers. We need to focus on aid right now. Let's stop the bloodshed. Also, the settlers in the West Bank. I think there was like 20 people that just got murdered the other day in the West Bank. Right when Iran was doing their counteroffensive, which is the defensive. That's exactly when Israel said, hey, guys, everyone's paying attention on this stuff. Just go mow down villages. Kick them all out. So we need to stop that. We need to make sure that human rights are upheld. We need to have standards, and we need to make sure that a world order is preserving the human rights that we all know we all want and we all deserve, most importantly.
Let's dive a little bit further into Palestine. I understand that it's complicated. It's confusing for people. People often don't agree on sequence of events or history, for example. Based upon the knowledge that you have, what are your thoughts for potentially how we should proceed, what involvement we should have, what Congress should try and do to help the Palestinian people?
Yeah. Well, it's largely what I was saying in that last answer of we need to, Israel has been acting like our master. The real president of the United States, Benjamin Netanyahu. In actuality, and I don't give Reagan any credit.
Sure.
Reagan put his foot down. He said, "You're going to stop what you're doing in the West Bank right now." And within 24 hours, Israel stopped because we have that pressure on them. What has Israel ever done for us? We give them weapons. We give them fighter jets. We give them all the money that they would ever want and more. Mm-hmm. We can control them. But right now we have a compromised president in the sense of the Epstein files and what dirt they have on the president. Biden was largely influenced by AIPAC, and much of our Congress, in fact, more than 90%, I believe, is lobbied by AIPAC. I will never take any AIPAC money, by the way. I'm the only candidate in the entire state of Indiana endorsed by the opposite group called Track AIPAC, or Citizens Against AIPAC Corruption, because I'm never going to take AIPAC money. I can call a genocide. But as far as finding the peace in Gaza and the West Bank with Israel, we need to basically threaten to cut off all military aid to Israel immediately, stop the aggression, or else, we are going to actively even some progressives, they were like, we'll fund Iron Dome because those are defensive things. All right, we'll go ahead and give Israel, go ahead and give China, Russia Iron Dome because it's okay if we give everyone missile defense systems. Well, Israel's our ally. Why are they our ally? Well, I literally don't know why. They are just a big block of the Middle East. Hey, they're a country in the Middle East. It's basically a standstill aircraft carrier that we launch our F-16s and F-22s out.
What would you say to the people that would say any speech against Israel is anti-Semitic?
That's a joke, obviously. So I'm not saying anything anti-Semitic. I'm saying things that are anti-Zionist. And actually, Zionism is contradictory to Judaism. Judaism, much like much religions, is a religion of peace, is a religion of open-mindedness and accepting of others. And Zionism is exactly the opposite. It is an apartheid state. So when people, I remember Zoran Mamdani out of New York City, there was a question, do you believe that Israel has the right to be a Jewish state? He was like, no, I believe Israel has the right to exist as a state with equal rights. It's like, hey, do you think that apartheid South Africa has the right to be a white state? And then freaking out when he says, no, it should be a state with equal rights, not just for white people. Or, any other group, I disagree with theocracies, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's, the UAE or, any other nation, fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't I disagree with the theocracy, or especially an apartheid state such as Israel? I would want to have equal rights. Mm-hmm. That's all I want. And that's actually more in line with, that's why there's so many groups called Jewish Voices for Peace, or Not in My Name, because they're taking that language. And anti-Semitism, genuine anti-Semitism, is on the climb, very unfortunately, because the state of Israel does a bunch of propaganda. Their flag is the Star of David, and they try to, correlate, hey, all Jewish people with this government, and then they go out and do the most horrendous acts that we've ever seen in the modern era. That's not right. I mean, that is very, very terrible. That it's very unfortunate. So, like, we are fighting against anti-Semitism. We're also fighting against Zionism. Both of those things, like, it's just the true message. It's the true message of love, and it's the human rights, basically. We are against apartheid. We are against, general rule of thumb theocracies. Israel is not a democracy, as frequently puppeted by, AIPAC candidates and AIPAC Congress people and whatnot. Like, oh, Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. All right, well, why do they have a caste system? Why are the people in that lower class not allowed to have higher office in the sense of, like, military positions or political positions? Why has there only been, out of all the prime ministers in Israel, there's only been one, like that upper group, I believe it's the Ashkenazi Jews, and no one of the, like, Arab populations, for instance, different denominations of the Jewish faith. And I believe it should be equal rights. It should be an open democracy. We should uphold the standards of human dignity and not tear them down.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. For those, you mentioned apartheid. And as someone that lived in South Africa, I had a little bit of experience in being able to see the ramifications of those actions. For those right now who are Israeli or are interested in Israeli relations, how closely are you following that? And do you also believe that they are currently an apartheid state?
South Africa right now? Or
Israel. I'm using the South African connection with apartheid.
Israel.
Because you mentioned it.
Israel is most definitely an apartheid state right now.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have any contacts or any friends that are Israeli right now that you're speaking to?
That I'm speaking to right now? No.
How about Palestinian?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have a few, and they're in the West Bank right now. Because they were scared of Trump's America and they actually got deported. Like, they could not stay here anymore. And I have more that are still here that I'm in contact with, but they have separate lines. Like, oh, you can't walk on this side of the street. This is the Israeli side of the street. Mm-hmm. The Palestinian side of the street's that way. And they'll literally throw feces at them. And the soldiers, like IDF, I call them the IOF, Israeli Offensive Force. Because, like, what defense are they even doing at this day? It's complete discrimination. It's like, what we remember here in America with, drinking your own fountains, and, like the Klan and everything that's happened, leading up to the civil rights movement and even to this day, of course. That's what's happening in Israel right now against Palestinians, against the, the lower caste systems of Israeli society. And all we're calling for is, equal rights. Hey, how about you don't do that? How about everyone, you can drink from whatever water fountain, walk whatever line, and that's not like a constant, like, let me see your papers, please, kind of society. We should just, hey, you should be able to walk from work to home and take care of your family and kids and put food on the table like anybody else without fear of getting detained and put into a literal concentration camp, which they do have in Israel.
Why do you think it's so hard for either current political figures sitting in office or candidates right now to address this Israeli-Palestinian situation?
AIPAC. It's AIPAC money that's flooding our election system. And I've spoken to Democrats in this state that are running for congressional office that they say, well, I'm not going to, like, yeah, I see your points, Jackson. If I say that it's a genocide too, AIPAC's going to donate to my opposition. Mm-hmm. And they don't want that. So, like, they're like, hey, I'm walking the tightrope. I'm not going to say the buzzwords that you want me to say. And, like, because they're scared. Not only, like, some people are, like, I mentioned the obvious one, like, if they take AIPAC money, that's the obvious one. But people are scared of that weapon, that gun on the table of, like, what if at any moment, if AIPAC wants to, they can donate $1 million. No, not directly, but, like, in super PAC money to attack ads against you or promoting their other candidate at any point.
Let's be clear. There are multiple ways if someone wishes to contribute to a candidate. It doesn't necessarily just have to come through AIPAC. There's Jim Street and other options, correct?
Yeah, and actually AIPAC nowadays is not even, because it's so unpopular with the base. Mm-hmm. Even on both sides, believe it or not. Like, even the Republican Party, like, it seemingly is like the more right, like the Nick Fuentes types, they hate Israel seemingly, because they're jealous of their ethno state, right? They're jealous of like what they can do. Like, oh, why do the Jewish people get to do it, not the white supremacists? But as far as like the base, AIPAC knows that like if we donate to a Democratic candidate, the one we truly want, that candidate, that's a poison pill. So now you'll see Democrats taking money from different groups like United Democracy Project or, such thing as like J Street. It's like a front group that is like, it's AIPAC. They move money into a different location and then they give it just by a different brand. And New Jersey, this was a perfect example of this. AIPAC was running ads, not even talking about Palestinian issues, Israeli issues. They were attacking, I believe, the incumbent in New Jersey, and the progressive eventually won. They were attacking the other. It was two AIPAC candidates and one real progressive. The two AIPAC candidates were battling it out, and they saw each other as like the main threats. This is the wealthiest district basically in the whole country, so you're not going to see as many progressives come out of there, but there it is. And AIPAC was spending money talking about ICE, not any Israeli issue, because they know in the Democratic primary, like that's a hot button issue. You're not going to win more people. So they were like attacking each other on other issues with AIPAC money. So, and I believe in Indiana, even in the Democratic primaries here, we're going to have to wait until the financials come out. The AIPAC is probably going to get involved. It's just they're not going to go by the name. So everyone needs to keep their eyes on that. Because if, there are candidates in my race that do not call what's going on in Gaza genocide. And it makes me wonder, are you just trying to be corporate safe or super PAC friendly to like try to walk that tightrope either out of fear or in compliance with the genocide in Gaza? Like, do you intend on taking that money? Like, that's the gun on the table. And it's a poison pill. They know. They absolutely know that. At least we are watching. Like, I'm going to look at every single one of your financiers of your campaign. I'm going to look at the super PAC money going on generally around the space. I'm deep diving this. So, like, go ahead, pick it up. It's like that one Puss in Boots meme, like with the sword. Like, pick it up. Go ahead. I will destroy you. Like, that is the poison pill. I'm going to just suplex you into the ground the second you pick it up, and everyone's going to know immediately. Same thing with other big donors, like Duke Energy money, like big health insurance. That's in my primary. Like, they're funding, I wonder why. Why do they feel comfortable with these candidates? But ultimately, yeah, we need to make sure that people are aware of money in politics.
How could normal Joe Schmo, for example, that maybe is just starting to get interested in politics or maybe just becoming interested to vote now, just to register to vote, how could your typical layman find out that someone was taking AIPAC money?
You can go to opensecrets.com, which is, yes, it's an awesome name for a website, and it tracks where that money, they just go off the FEC. OpenSecrets.com, they make it look all pretty. They like organize it all together, and it's better formatting, so that's why I prefer it. Or you can just go to the actual FEC website, but it looks like a really boring piece of like white paper, and it just says like, oh, this group, like, whatever, Duke Energy or AIPAC or whatever lobby group or individual, down to that level, you can see like this much money to this campaign on this date. For this, for this race. So either going directly to the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, or OpenSecrets.com is what I mostly recommend. OpenSecrets.com. You could go down to PAC money. You could see like the split up of like different, like what is this group donated to before? Like if you see a Democrat and you see like, oh, if this is a name that's donated, $5,000, which is the maximum for a PAC to donate to a campaign. What other groups have they donated to? And then you see a bunch of Republicans or like anti, healthcare, right? Like if they're lobbying against Medicare for all, for instance, or against cannabis legalization, like Eli Lilly or something, that's really bad. Why are they donating to my Democratic congressperson or my candidate or state rep candidate or something? So you can see that, you can track that money, exactly what the interests are if you just do a little bit of research.
Who do you follow right now? Who would you recommend that people follow right now to get either good news on candidates, good news on international issues, good news on domestic issues, even if they may be content creators?
Locally, so Indiana, definitely follow Mad Voters. Mad Voters is a must. Absolutely. The local Indivisible chapter, wherever's near you. Now, I'm a proud Munsonian, so I'm a really proud Muncie Resist member that they track their candidates. So that's statewide. Do that. Or like federally, I like the way I get my news from is from YouTube. Like I only watch, like the headlines, or if it's like a really interesting story, I'll watch mainstream news like CNN or MS Now or whatever. That's only like to get like a quick scoop, and then I go back to my my usual place, which is places like this secular talk, like Kyle Kalinske, or Breaking Points with Crystal Ball. I was on there. Had very fortunate to be on their show together with Crystal and Kyle. Drop Site News with Ryan Grimm. Amazing. They're always follow Drop Site News. They're doing breaking reporting all over the place, whether it's coming to the Iran war, the Epstein files. They did a lot of like, if you want to get like news up front, like the first people that break it, go to Drop Site. Also, there's not to do a promo for an app, but Ground News. If you want like a balanced news section, Ground News gives you like, hey, this is a left. Now I would like debate like if that's a really this is a liberal news outlet, and it's like CNN. Like please, I wish, but yeah, good Ground News gives you like, hey, this is a left wing, neutral, right wing, and this is the same story, and this is how each of them title their video, and you can just like see it's an all in one, so you can do that. But typically, I get it from like YouTube, like just a lot of other people.
How do you fact check yourself for your content to make sure that you're accurate?
I did well. The way I support these people is because they bring in the sources. It has to be credible sources, like such as Drop Site News. I get, just using that example. So like they'll bring their own reporting, like here's how we found this and it's credible and all this stuff. I'm not just going to like see one post on Facebook if it's fake. Like I don't even get my news really from Facebook. I see like events happening from social media, or like, more of those apps, but like I'm not going to repeat dialogue that I ran, or like a breaking news section, this random, person down the street posted. No, I don't. So I vet it strongly, heavily. Like it has to be credible, and like maybe even wait to say something until like more reporting comes out on it, so I can know for sure that it's proven, multi-source information.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we've got another question here. The median age for a first-time home buyer is 40. Most young people feel priced out of life. Young people cannot afford college, a house, or groceries, and it's having a radicalizing effect on the left and the right. What are your thoughts on the housing crisis?
So, yeah, growing up in the age post the 2008 financial crisis, us young people have lost hope. And I'm not speaking for the whole generation, but I've talked to thousands of people across the district and the state. We've lost all hope of owning a home, and it's very sad to see that the billionaire class has done this to us, that they tanked the market on purpose for profit, long-term profit. And we should have held them accountable for that. But as far as going forward and when I serve in Congress, I will propose having a large, millions of homes being funded to make sure that we're tackling the pricing. We need to have not only make new homes for people to move into and subsidize that, we should also give grants to first-time home buyers. Like Kamala Harris actually had a great policy that she was campaigning on of the tax credit for first-time home buyers, which will allow young people such as myself to be able to even like put their foot in the door, And so I believe very strongly in that policy, negotiating prices, having strong tenant unions. That I'm in favor of the PRO Act, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, which failed in 2023. Biden tried to do it to his credit, and like great domestic policy, and the Republicans killed it. And this would help labor unions, tenant unions, like school teacher unions. So we need to have strong tenant unions to make sure that the tenants can negotiate the prices with their landlords, and that way you don't get that bad landlord, which everyone has an experience with. I imagine at this day, most of us working class people have had a bad landlord, and that jacks up the prices. Why? Oh, the market. And the market they look at the mirror like, you know what, I can, they're going to pay it. They can pay it. So yeah, negotiating down these prices, making new homes, having tax credits for first-time home buyers, many other policies. Please go to the JacksonFranklinforCongress.com to see our full policy. Any question about what we're talking about, and I have a great information block about that.
Let's talk about the environment now, because we're talking about housing. We're talking about building housing. I think a lot of people right now are, from a variety of ways, concerned about the environment, how to protect the environment, how to protect land rights, water rights, air quality. How would you implement or author legislation that could protect those things that people care about for the future generations?
Right. I mean, mixing the issues of housing and the environment, a lot of people are worried about these new data centers coming up, and where we, people that live in the community, are now paying for the energy usage of these large, multi-millions, data centers that are just sucking up all the energy in the whole community, and also killing the environment. And on top of that, they use what data is it? It's our data. It's our online information that they sell to corporations without our consent. So there's a lot of different things wrapped up in these data center issues. So we must make sure that, and they're just like every Chat GPT response or OpenAI or whatever it is, you dump out 7 water bottles because it's to cool the servers. There's these big, tall servers, and they have to cool it constantly, and you're just destroying the environment around them and energy around it. So we need to make sure that they're completely renewable. So save the environment. Hey, we must have a no further construction of any data center around the nation. This is what I'm willing to propose. We need to make sure that there's not any more data centers constructed until we make sure that all of them, until our laws can catch up with this technology. And we also need data consumer protections. On the EU, Europe, they have these laws. They have basically the amendments for the internet, treat them as a public good. They're not allowed to trade your online information without your consent, or sometimes even at all. And we must have that. And here it's the Wild West. There's nothing. In fact, they passed a bill no laws in AI or, whatever data sharing for the next 10 or 15 years. That's insane. You know who wrote that law? The exact companies that are making a profit at your expense. So we need to undo that law, make in new laws to have a clean environment for the data, make sure that it's clean energy, make sure we're having sweeping protections for our people and our online privacy. And we also need to make sure that the data centers are funding their own energy, making our energy costs go down, and that they can pay for it themselves. Because the wealthiest people in the whole country, how about they pay it? They flip the bill, make the rich pay their fair share in taxes instead of putting the costs on us working class people. On top of that, so that's the data center issue, we also need to have the Green New Deal. That was just a starting point. Regardless of whatever Fox News will try to tell you it is, that's what most countries already have. All it was what if we had a small carbon tax on the people that are doing carbon emissions that are destroying the environment, the ecosystems across the world, and we put that money back in? We'd make millions or if not billions and billions of dollars. Use your imagination. What do we want to use that money on? Do we want to have clean road? Do we a good education system, good healthcare? Literally, we got to decide what we can do with that carbon tax, that money that comes in. Also, just having stricter rules on, they oil pipelines, the Sioux Native Americans in the Dakotas. Obama and Trump ran a pipeline right through their home, their reservation and the religious, the Black Hills. So making sure that they don't do that, and also do land back for the Native Americans, of course. But just having regulations. It's big. We talk about a lot of lobbied interest. Fossil fuel industry. They're not the planet isn't simply dying. It's not just dying on its own. It's getting murdered by the fossil fuel industry, and it's going to be the future generations that bear the brunt of that cost. So if we need to organize the entire world the which we haven't seen since World War II to combat this one issue of. We all need to get on the same fucking page right now, or else our grandkids will not know winter. Or else we all will know is an ash cloud floating across the planet, and won't see the sun. You're not going to have a good environment. All of Florida is underwater. Netherlands is underwater. There's many places across the world. The conservatives want to say that they're worried about immigration. What's immigration going to look like when all of Africa has water wars and hundreds of millions of people are fleeing to the northern hemisphere because there's no water down south, and it's because we've already plundered their natural resources, and it's because of what we did, not what they did. So if you're concerned about immigration, get on board with climate change reform right now, or else you're going to have another thing you're going to be concerned about.
Let's talk a little bit more about indigenous rights and indigenous sovereignty. Do you have any friends right now in the Indigenous community that you're getting advice from, or that you're having conversations with about things like water rights and land back?
Not not, I mean, maybe not to my knowledge. Like, I have friends that are Native American, but as far as I would say that are like, oh, they're like really close to me and we're actively talking about it. I have some people on my team that are very passionate about this, but as far as like people in the community themselves, uh, maybe less so. But I am very passionate about it. Like, I fight for the issues nonetheless. I'm from Muncie, Indiana, which is named after, it was supposedly named after Chief Muncie. It's fake person. It didn't never existed to my knowledge. Living in Delaware County after the Delaware, and that's in Indiana. The Delaware is way out east, if you remember the Delaware, right? So it shows you how far west they've already got pushed back even by this time. And then we live in Indiana, the land of the Indians. So at this notion, we should be very sympathetic and empathetic to the Native American plight and to the genocide, the untold genocide of the Native American peoples, like thousands of groups and tribes and backgrounds. But yeah, we 100% need to do paybacks, do reparations, and also Native American women experience, I believe, 4 times more sexual assault than any other group in this country. And they're also like, there's not a whole lot of representation in Congress, I might add. And there's also like a lot of different ways that they are continued to be persecuted against even to this day. We like to say, oh, well, this issue's behind us. All right. No, it's not. They're still being marginalized, still being persecuted in many different ways. And not to mention the state laws that are more out west than us in here in Indiana that are still persecuting them. We need to make sure that we stole this land from them. This nation, not only did we steal land from the Native American people, we stole people to help build this land through chattel slavery. So this land is literally built up from stolen land built by stolen people, and we colonialized it. We took it through force. So I think it's time to just make right. And it's as we talked about, like reparations with like Germany and us and Iran, we need to make sure we repair, the Native American communities. I 100% believe in that. And water rights, 100%, because like with droughts and stuff, we got to make sure that they're taken care of with, human dignity that they deserve.
How significant do you think it is, our history in the U.S. with chattel slavery and the extermination of the indigenous populations? How significant do you think that history is and what is playing out now?
It's 100% correlated. Like we are just we are just living in the present of history. Politics is just current history. 100%. It's not like, oh, that's a different, distant thing, has nothing to do. It has everything to do. Especially, I mean, when it comes to, like, that wasn't that long ago. We were like, that's 100 years ago, plus some change, so, and we still have, like, slavery is actually, contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, still legal in America. Under the 13th Amendment, it says, hey, you have to pay someone for their labor unless they're incarcerated. I wonder why America has the most incarcerated amount of people. I think it's 3 times more than any other nation. Than any other nation. I wonder why. I think it's definitely correlated in the sense that we have private, for-profit prisons that lobby to make things such as, I don't know, cannabis illegal. And then even though, give this example, white people and black people smoke cannabis at the same rate, but black people are 4 times more likely to get incarcerated than white people. And also 4 times more likely to get the death penalty. It's a racist injustice system, as I call it. So it's still, like, when it turns out for the same crime, if you put all the cameras, all the policemen into these, like, red line districts, it's purposely segregated because, everything ties in together. Because, like, why, you look at, like, even food deserts and you compare that, overlay that with a map of, like, red lined, segregated communities, and it's like almost a 1-for-1. Even in Indianapolis. So history correlates. It's just the continuation, and it's our job, it's our duty to undo these wrongs and fight for what's right.
So speaking of chattel system and indigenous rights and people being affected, what do you think the history of our or the history of slave catching has to do with our current administration's view and usage of ICE?
I mean, the whole police department is based upon the slave catching system. I mean, that's where the modern day police system was even built, of course. but a sense of ICE going after even like documented immigrants. Like they don't care that you're documented or not. They say, oh, come in the right way. They'll say, oh, come in legally. You must be a legal human being to be here. It has everything to do like with the history. That's that same mindset that has continued around and around and around. I mean, Trump is a 50s guy. He's older than, the planet itself almost. So like he came from the era before the Civil Rights Act. He grew up in that. That's how his mindset of like, oh, well, they're the others. He has a unique disdain and hatred for people coming from the southern border, the Latino people, or, Latino, and like other communities.
His familial history is very telling when it comes to exploiting and segregating different communities because of his family's history with the housing industry in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could see where he like stiffs workers. He hires on a bunch of Hispanic workers, for example, and then he doesn't pay them, or he calls the police on them, or something like that, and like. He doesn't care. He doesn't see them as equals. He's a, eugenicist. He believes that like he's more powerful. He's, just better in every way. That's why he keeps on going after like people like Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, all these people. He says their IQ, Kamala Harris. He said their IQ is so small, but he never makes the IQ comment with people, that are not like Elizabeth Warren, someone who is, perceptively white. He just ridicules her for other reasons. But he only ever talks about IQ when it comes to people of color. So that tells you everything you need to know about. We have a racist president, obviously. Also a sexist one.
I would agree. How important do you think that it is to suss out who is truly a progressive in these races, and how would your typical layman do that? Like, what would be the criteria, if you will, for, say, a normal person that doesn't really understand this and is still trying to navigate, like, where they fall in the line, where they fall in the tent of the Democratic Party? Like, what benefits or sort of track would you give them to educate themselves in that way to where they can truly find out who they're progressive?
Yeah, who's fighting for you? Yeah. So there's generally like, and the establishment will always say, oh, you're purity testing. What, you have standards? That's all that is. Oh, hey, I'm not going to vote for someone who's going to, repeal trans rights and vote for genocide. Oh, that's purity testing. Do you see the other guy? Like, that's the lesser of two evils nonsense has got to stop, in a sense of like, like, oh, well, we obviously have to throw up a crappy candidate. The way we, working people can kind of tell the difference in the primary is basically what matters to you. Have set policies before you, like, even if you don't know any of the candidates, like, get yourself a list of the candidates and, stack up your like top 3 or 5 policies or however extensive you want. Mm-hmm. Does this candidate meet that criteria? Generally speaking, it's easy to suss out non-progressives by, do they take corporate money? Do they take corporate PACs? That's a big one. If they take corporate PACs, you're immediately kicked out of the club. I don't even think you should be in the Democratic Party. You should be forcibly removed from the Democratic Party. If you support genocide, if they don't even call it a genocide, if you ask, like, and also they don't have town halls. They don't want no one wants their dirty laundry out there. Like, oh, ask me, like they do. I have more town halls under my belt than every other candidate in this district combined. So, and because I'm proud about my policies, but other people know their policies are unpopular. So corporate lobby money, if they're not talking to the community, such as town halls, you even ask these questions, right? If their website is very vague, like even in my race, there's people who just say, I care about healthcare. What does that mean? Victoria Sparks might as well tell me that. She might as well be a Republican. If they're not saying that Medicare for all or like a single payer plan, then yeah, they don't think healthcare is a right. If they say, oh, I care, I'm going to fight for healthcare, that's bland. If vague, and relate that to any other issue that you care about. If it's a vague policy, they're bad on it. They're not going to say that, oh, I'm very unpopular in this issue when they know the right answer. And honestly, if they thought the same way that we did, they would not be in this race in the first place, because I've been running for more than a year. And I'm unapologetically fighting for populist issues, grassroots. So money in politics, I'd say healthcare, genocide, transparency on their websites and town halls. And as far as like, just any other issues, like if they are really quiet on trans people, women, if they don't even say to like, oh, well, we shouldn't abolish ICE. We should like increase ICE funding or something.
Can I ask you about ICE?
Yeah, abolish ICE. If they don't say abolish ICE in this day, like the modern day, and actually there was a poll.
Should it be that specific language though? Because I know right now there's some pushback right in the Democratic Party on maybe some candidates should not use that particular language. So you're saying, yes, push that language.
Last time, because like when we said defund the police and back in 2020, after, George Floyd, what election did we win? Did we win back the presidency? Oh, we did. So, and that wasn't even, that was a small, like the Republicans were basically doing the job for us of like using that as a message. And people were like, yeah, why does my local police department have a half track that like an an armored, vehicle that runs through and destroys my street? Why do we have a military on our street? Why can't they just be like more seen as public servants and not as like an occupying army? Because like, yeah, I believe in the police. Like,
do you see, political candidates as civil servants, and what does that mean?
Yeah, they're public servants. They're not above people. They're below. It's like servant leadership, as what we say in the army. Like you are not above them. You work for them. And that's how it should be. Like, and in fact, I think modern day politics is exactly like opposite. Like Donald Trump feels like he's the boss of everybody. He's not a leader. Congress feels like they're entitled to power. And even at Victoria Sparks' town halls, she came here and told us what the DC wants. They're like, we want redistricting. We want this big, beautiful bill. We're going to, like, DC wants this. Instead of just asking us what we wanted so she could take that message back to DC. It's completely flipped over. But yeah, I think back to the abolish ICE thing. According to a YouGov poll that came out last week, 50% of the American population wants to abolish ICE. And it's not like the other 50% don't want it. Like, oh, don't abolish it. There's like some people who are like, greatly defund it. So like 50% is the biggest group of this poll. Abolish ICE. We're like more than 50% of the people. And then there's some people greatly defund it. There's some I don't knows. And then there's like 26% of the population where it's like, no, we continue to fund it more. And that's, I guess, it's like basically Trump's approval, right? It's like 34%. So it's basically Trump's approval rating is how many people wanted to keep ICE. And that's it. There's no normie. The normies on this issue are saying defund it. And most of us working class people are saying, if it was 1945, Germany, talking about the Gestapo, the literal Gestapo that, grabbed the Jewish people and sent them to concentration camps, we would not be saying, hey, our boys in black just need some empathy training, and they just need more training, or defund and put body cameras on them, even though they still do violent. They murdered Renee Good on camera. They were recording it themselves. They killed Alex Preddy on camera. They used Liam Ramos, a 6-year-old boy, to lure out his parents on camera. So yes, if it was 1945, we would call to abolish the Gestapo, and in 2026, we need to be calling to abolish the current Gestapo, which is ICE, the federal mass thugs. It's their one small immigration, like undocumented immigration, is an administrative crime. Most immigrants, undocumented immigrants, actually, they do not commit violent crime. It's like 99.97 of them do not commit violent crime. Obviously, they don't want to get caught. Or any crime, for that matter. Like, they want to stay here and provide for their families. Of course, they're going to commit less crime. So the fact that we have a racist immigration system that is trying to track them down and send them out has nothing to do with anything that they're doing. They're only building up our system because they pay into a system and they don't even get to take back. Like, they pay for our roads. They pay taxes. And guess what? They pay for many people's Medicaid, their food stamps. They don't get a pull on these. They don't get Social Security checks on like what the Republicans are lying to you about. But yeah, so like this is where the popular issue is. Go to the base. And politics, imagine this. Be popular. If the people want it, and it's, as I said, it's not just the politician's job to fight for what's popular, but also to make popular what's right. This is one of those issues. The Gestapo are on our streets and they're murdering our people. That's literally the definition of terrorism, is violence for a political and against civilians for political or religious goals. Well, the ICE is just a political manifestation. They're Trump's henchmen. They're his brown shirts. And that's why he's threatening to send ICE to our ballot boxes to intimidate, not for illegal voting or whatever, which doesn't happen, obviously. It's to scare like average people, even like people were born here and lived their whole lives. It's like, oh, ICE, those are the people that murdered 2 other people. I don't want to go. I don't want to die. I have a family. So I'm just not going to vote. What's one vote? They want us in that mindset. So that's why we need to abolish ICE and have a pathway to citizenship for the people that are here. No more of America the empire. Now it's time for America the sanctuary. Give me your tired. Give me your huddled masses. You're weak. And together we can create a system that the government, American ideology was always supposed to be. The melting pot. We should be proud that people even want to come to this country in the first place. They are in many ways more American than the people that are trying to kick them out. They love America. They see the American dream. Whether if it is just a dream or a reality or not, they came here to provide for their families, build up this nation. And you should be proud that they're coming here and not leaving here. But they would want them gone because it all just comes down to racism. It's just racism. They're going to say, oh, well, like, I don't care about if they're documented or not. If they came here legally. Trump, during the debates against Kamala Harris, was like talking about Puerto Rican people. Or no, Haitians. He's like, and that whole community was documented. He was saying, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. They were all here, according to your words, legally. So it's not really about whether they're documented or not. It's really just about skin color to these people. So yes, abolish ICE.
What do you think the significance is that we technically have an immigrant first lady? She is a citizen now. But what do you think the significance is that she was an immigrant and her husband is supporting anti-immigrant policies?
I mean, on a wide scale, they're so eugenicist. They're going to be like, oh, well, she's one of the good
You're
ones.
saying that
she's Slovenia.
When they're white.
Literally, yes, because the numbers, like in Europe, we allow more people from Europe, a higher number of people annually, and it's like a random lottery who gets in. You get a number, like a wait line, and sometimes you can wait more than like 10 years, 12 years, sometimes even longer. So, and that number for like how many people we accept every year is way higher in Europe compared to all of Latin America. And there are more people in Latin America. So it's not based on anything other than race. It's a history, it's just been here for a long time. Like just because that's the way we do things, and legality does not equal morality. So
how would you change that? How would you be part of that change in Congress?
We need to make sure that we undo that system of, having the numbers game and just be like, hey, just case by case basis, case by case basis. Like if you're coming here, if you're just an average person, most of the time, like, yeah, okay, well, like we'll set you up with like a jobs program and, a healthy society, like where you want to move to Florida. Okay, well, it will help facilitate that. You make sure it's like a jobs program, a housing program to make sure everyone is housed properly and they got a good school and everything. And, hey, well, they're just, we'll get you even, like, obviously English is, the common tongue. So, like, we'll provide for them if they want an English language program, if they choose. And, yeah, just facilitate people. You should be proud that the people are wanting to come here. And it's more people for us. It's, treat it, like, give them human rights. That's kind of how I view it. Now, like, it doesn't mean that violent criminals are going to be all accepted, or like you're going to take it case by case. If it's like a serial rapist on the loose from Mexico, okay, turn them over to turn them into authorities. Like there's laws to be upheld internationally as well. And like you're actually not allowed, not supposed to, I'll say, to take in wanted criminals
support
without turning them in.
Or legislation potentially to increase, say, positions for data analysts that could potentially prevent that sort of thing for, say, immigrants that are coming into the country that might be war criminals in their previous country, for example.
Yeah, definitely analyze it. Yeah, our information sector should be quite well staffed and qualified.
If we did that, do you think we would have the need for ICE?
No, well, we already don't have a need for ICE. So it's just like, hey, like,
I'll bring it up sort of as an alternative for people that are saying, right, you want to abolish ICE, but what's your alternative?
The alternative is give them a pathway to citizenship, and having that information of background checks is 100, like just as much as universal background checks for weapons, firearms. Yeah, everyone who comes in here should it's just it's not like a deep dive. Like the government, like the less information they have on your individual life, perhaps the better. But it's like grand scheme things, like, did you ever commit?
You're saying, just to clarify for those that would, question this, are you saying less information held on U.S. citizens and people that have required documentation versus when you're applying to enter, say, like if you're applying for residency or applying for citizenship? Is there a difference in this?
So it's, if you're coming from the outside, like register, all that, and have that data, like that information, like asking questions. And there's also a difference between people who are already over here. Sure. And also, like, hey, just make sure you get like work, like provide for them a way to get that same process. Is kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, hey, just make sure, like, you're not getting in trouble. We're actually, in fact, helping you to make sure that you can get the resources you need. Because if you're an undocumented immigrant not in the system, we could provide a path to that citizenship over time, and we could work on developing that. So if you have a medical crisis or something, and if you see a violent crime, a lot of undocumented immigrants don't even want to call the police because they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna get in trouble. We need to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable and like have healthcare, and like they should be treated like human beings. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Thoughts on the Epstein files? What should we do with these people, and what would you do in Congress to try and prevent things like this from happening in the future?
Well, we obviously we've only seen less than 1% of the Epstein files. Now, they say that there were 6 million files. They've released about 3.5 million files after saying it doesn't exist. Hey, we have them all right here. The social media people are looking at them. No, they don't exist. No, our guy's not in them. Actually, we're only going to release, half after saying there's 6 million. And out of that half that were released, that's so censored, it's basically like less, we have 1%. And Congress people that have searched up Trump's name in the unredacted version, so like people who have access to the unredacted version, and you like Control F Trump, he pops up in the files more than 1 million times. As of the right now, the redacted files, he pops up more than 38,000 times. So we need to fully, as long as we're protecting the survivors, we should release everything. Like all of the dirty laundry, all these rich and powerful people need to be behind bars, basically, for the rest of their lives. I don't see how we can rehabilitate people who like torture children. And also there's like allegations of cannibalism. There's allegation like bestiality. And I don't see how that's rehabilitatable. I think the Finnish model of, having, the prison system of, as long as you're, like, if it's a small petty crime, like, I'm not going to throw you in the slammer for 25 years for something small. As long as, like, hey, you seem promised, you seem like, all right, let's tackle the root causes rather than just punishing for the sake of punishment. But as for the Epstein files, I do not see how these people, Donald Trump is not rehabilitatable. Like, you're not going to reintroduce him to society, a brand new man. So I think we need to lock him away. Same thing with, obviously many other figures that are in the Epstein files, like Lutnick.
About reparations, for example. What economic reparations would you try and implement into policy to ensure that this type of situation would not happen in the future?
As far as the Epstein files, and
we'll just use that as an example because we're speaking about extreme wealth and extreme depravity. So I think a lot of people right now are questioning if you have so many people that have such an insane, an enormous amount of wealth, how do you regulate that? How do you prevent that type of situation from happening? Because it would seem that a large portion of these people in these files have an insane amount of wealth.
Yeah, so I do not believe that there is a single moral billionaire in this country. If you've amassed that much wealth, it's not because you worked harder. It's because you've scratched, clawed, and exploited workers, stole from people. Like, they have $1 billion, and now Elon Musk is actually the first trillionaire in the world. Mm-hmm. They stole that from us. That's working people's money. Labor made that money. So what we need to do is make sure that we have a tax on billion. Even some people even argue below $1 billion, but you keep it round enough for now until we build off $1 billion, like 999 million. Yeah, 990, like the 999, all that. Every penny after that needs to be taxed at 100%. We need to eliminate billionaires. The thing is, we can either have a healthcare system that treats all people like as the dignity they deserve, or we can have billionaires. We can either have a public education system where our young people can get the education they deserve to prosper and invest in that education, or we can have billionaires. We can have a system where we have universal school meals, paid family leave, roads, universal broadband. We can have high-speed rail going across this nation, or we can have billionaires. There's no, like, it's either we amass all this wealth in one spot for a small group of people, or, and that's all our money, by the way, or we can distribute that across the nation for the greater good of all people and make sure that these people are not too powerful. There's no one too powerful above the law. Everyone needs to be upholding the law, and those laws must be just as well. So, yeah, there should have a billionaire tax to make sure we treat our people right. And also we could get things that take care of all of us, the bottom 99%. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And, like, you know, we need to uphold the people who commit these violent crimes, of course, and, you know, destroy these networks of, you know, the elites that are literally, you know, molesting us.
Do you support legislation? Because right now a lot of survivors are struggling to get justice because sometimes there's a cap on these crimes. Do you support bringing forth legislation that essentially would eliminate that timeline so anybody that was a survivor of any sort of domestic violence could then proceed to try and make themselves whole?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. As far as child exploitation, human trafficking, and all of these types of issues, what policies would you bring forward, author, or support in order to help support that mission?
We need to make sure that the survivors are taken care of. And that's why I mentioned earlier, we need to have universal mental health care. Healthcare is a human right. Mental health care is part of that system. So making sure that anyone can go to a therapist, we need to, you know, make sure they're taken care of. A lot of people, like, need, after traumatizing experience early on, they struggle for the rest of their life, you know, a lot of times. And we need to make sure they have all the resources and all the help that they need, case by case. But, you know, everyone needs that helping hand up. Yeah, so to lift them out of the terrible situation that they were forced upon into. So
do you support universal childcare?
100%, yes. Universal daycare, universal childcare. I've seen in Muncie, United, you know, daycare invited me into the terrible conditions with the vouchers that were cut. This is just state level policy that's impacting local level stuff. It's not a budgetary crisis. It's a civil rights crisis, and that goes with, you know, universal child care, daycare, and also special needs education. The state is pulling funds away without, like, for no reason, just because we have a flat tax in this state of 7%, about to be 6.8, I believe, later this year. We have billionaires. They could the child care voucher in Indiana was $220 million. One billionaire could pay that, and guess what? They'd still have more than $1 billion. Or guess what? We could legalize, tax, and regulate cannabis, which Indiana, we're surrounded by states that already have it legalized. Even Kentucky, seemingly more red state, they have it legalized medicinally. So if we legalized cannabis, taxed it at the same rate that Illinois has, 10%, which is not a lot, it's pretty usual, we would generate annually, and this is accounting population, tourism, and all that, about $240 million every year. So enough to bring back that program and expand that program. And that's one way the state, now I'm running for federal, but so there's different ways.
As an example.
Yeah, as an example. Maybe we could legalize it nationally, which I'm in favor of. We need to legalize it nationally. Those tax money goes to a universal child care daycare system.
I'm actually really interested in that. I've been trying to educate myself a little more. My brother actually works in a dispensary in Illinois.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm going to have somebody coming on the show to talk about the medicinal uses and everything that's going on in Illinois for those that are curious for what that could look like for Indiana or for the nation.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And many, like, how much money is Indiana losing by people who need cannabinoid products? They leave out of state, and now that state gets to tax that money, and they get to put it in their schools, their infrastructure, their systems, and not here at home. You know, I know veterans that got blown up in Afghanistan that cannabis is really the only product that, you know, helps their back pain or their, you know, or people with arthritis or neck pain, like joints. Cannabis is a there's a lot of nothing's perfect, but like alcohol is legal.
Sure.
And, like drunk driving has killed a lot more people than someone who gets high and eats Doritos on the couch, because they just want to feel like their body is not in constant pain all the time. So, yes, we need to. It's also, why is that? Money in politics. Eli Lilly, big pharmaceutical industry, one of the largest, in fact, headquarters in Indianapolis, and they lobby our state lawmakers, both state house and Senate, for that exact reason. And you don't have to look too far. There's a lot of both sides, generally speaking. They take Eli Lilly money. So we need to tackle the root cause of why these are not. And they see big pharma sees cannabis as competition, and I don't know why they wouldn't just want to hop in and like invest in cannabis industry. Also, big alcohol actually also sees cannabis as a threat to their profits, because it's like, hey, someone wants to get inebriated, go to, whatever alcohol product.
Sure. Because, we on this podcast talk a lot about autism, neurodiversity, and disability rights, for example. What could your role be in Congress in that way? How could you advocate for the disability community, for the autism community? What would that legislation look like for you, or what would you support?
So there's already a bill that is in effect. It's just not enforced. It's called the IDEA Act, or actually the A in IDEA actually stands for Act. So it's IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. So that made it to where the federal government promised to pay 40% of special needs education at the district level. So that's local level, right? And we've never, ever, the federal government has never paid more than 18% of that money. So we need to enforce it to where they're paying at least that 40%. We can build off that. But right now we need to enforce the rules that are on the books, largely, basically more than double the funding, federal funding, into the special needs education programs. And also there's wait times. If you're enrolled, you're registered into these, the help programs, the assistant programs, for I believe autistic individuals to pull from programs, there's like a 6 months wait time. We need to eliminate that. The second they know, that you should be able to pull on those resources. And there's also 2-year wait times for other disabilities. So we need to eliminate those wait times. There's also a sub-minimum wage for autistic people that we need to remove entirely. Pay them the wages they deserve. I can't believe I have to say these things. And also make it a living wage.
It's important to talk about, because I think there's a large portion of the population that is either on the spectrum, has children that are on the spectrum, have community members that are concerned about this. I mean, hell, there's at least 1 million people in Indiana right now that have a disability. Yeah. So it's important to have these conversations, and I don't think there are a lot of candidates that are. This is why I'm asking you about this.
100%. There's also funding ABA programs. I was with ABA Hillcroft and Muncie just like a few days ago, and they've already pulled. What they were telling me is the state has pulled back so much from their funding, and like they used to have jobs there at the facility that they're pulling away. They're like like they're giving it to some like a contractor or something, and giving them good resources, making sure they live long, healthy lives, happy lives, and like if they want to work a job, it's at the wage they can get that job, for one, like provide those resources, wheelchair accessible as well. There's things people can do, but they're being neglected. And like it's as I mentioned, it's not a budgetary thing. We have enough money. It's a civil rights issue. So we just need to make sure we actually pay for it, and we're championing policies like this, because it often, like communities, like the disabled community, does get ignored. Very much so. And the fact that our politicians are prioritizing the profits of a few billionaires over the people they're supposed to represent is absurd.
Do you think there's a strong inclination to have disabled people either in positions in office or on people's staff to advise them about these issues?
Yes. Yeah. Much like your previous question of like why it's important to have people in communities in high levels of power, because they offer that perspective. Like maybe like a person not in that community, they didn't have to experience the hoops that someone in the community. So like that knowledge, that expertise with the problem, they know it firsthand. Yes, they absolutely need to be in positions of power or close to those positions of power, guiding them in legislating that policy and letting their voices be heard. 100%.
If you get this nomination and if you get this role in Congress, what commitment could you make to the disabled community or the minorities in our population that could potentially either seek out positions on your staff, or would you make a commitment to maybe there's a certain portion of your staff that you would make sure that was well represented?
I would absolutely. Yeah, I'm fully ready to say that commitment. Like, I want your voice to come with, like, it's not just me going to Congress. It's all of us. It's our voices coming to Congress. So please reach out to us at info@jacksonfranklinforcongress.com, email, or just, finding my phone number on there at the website, jacksonfranklinforcongress.com. And I want to hear from you. I want to bring your voice with me to Washington. I want you with me in Washington. I'd love to hear, experts on this issue, because I would not say I'm an expert on this issue, but I want to hear your perspectives and your thoughts, your ideas on how we tackle this crisis that's ongoing in this nation right now. So I'm fully ready to make that pledge.
So you are committed to being an ally to the disabled?
100%, yes.
You are an ally for the autism community?
Yes.
And you are an ally for women and minorities?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything like that we haven't covered that you would like to touch on?
We talked about a lot. What's some issues that we could touch on? We talked about a lot. It's been almost 2 hours.
Well, let's hit up Venezuela and Greenland while we're talking.
Okay. Yes. Illegal wars are illegal and immoral. Yeah. I don't think that we should use our military as a bludgeoning tool for U.S. imperialism. And I believe that hands off Greenland, hands off Venezuela, hands off Mexico, because they want to drone strike Mexico with the cartels. Hands off Ecuador, they bomb them. Hands off Canada, hands off Libya, Yemen, Somalia, Cuba. Yeah, they're starving in the Cuban blockade. Jesus Christ, they're like starving. We're doing our own genocide. The population has basically nowhere to go. They're having power outages. We need to feed the people. I strongly agree with the Obama's of the Iran nuclear deal, and also like undoing the blockade of Cuba. Making sure we can give them medicine, because disease is running rampant now, and it's all on us. It's like a medieval siege. Like, oh look, their government is flailing. It's imagine like you're a medieval siege around a castle, and the people are like starved because you're besieging them, and it's look, their king is unruly because look, their people are starving. Maybe it has something to do with you encircling the U.S. Navy around the whole island and blocking off all trade. Right. And Venezuela oil accounted for, I believe, like 70 or 80% of Cuba's oil, like their energy supply. So I wonder how these things are related. Yeah.
Right. As a Hoosier and as a voter yourself, what candidates do you like that you're seeing in the state right now?
In the state, in Indiana.
Yeah, and I know, you're super busy. I understand that. But I think it would be valuable for people to hear from you, the Hoosier and the voter as well, because you will also be voting.
So even though I'm not in the congressionally, so I'll go from the top and I'll work my way down.
Okay.
Blythe Potter is the only grassroots candidate running for Secretary of State, not taking any AIPAC affiliated money, not taking any Epstein affiliated money. So my first, primaries, as I heard a popular saying, primaries are where you vote for your hopes. And even though actually Blythe is not a primary, it's a convention, so I won't be able to vote for her. But like, obviously, it's very obvious who I support. Okay. So primaries are where you vote for your hopes. General elections are where you vote against your fears. Sure. I've heard that saying quite a lot. So like, my hopes are with Blythe. I hope she wins the convention, just because I feel like grassroots populism is the only way we're going to win in Indiana. Corporate diet republicanism, conservatism has failed on the Democratic ticket, has failed us for the last 20 years. So I'm not holding out hope for that. Okay. So that's state level. Okay. Federal level. Other congressional candidates I really respect, on top of yourself, of course.
Oh, I wasn't even going to go there. I wasn't trying to make this about me. I'm just saying, you as a Hoosier, because I think it's important to tell people, right? Because right now, while we're campaigning, there's that portion of us as candidates, and then there's an even more valuable portion of us that's speaking as Hoosiers, like as people that have a commitment to this state and that we want, the future to be better for these kids.
Yeah. On that note, is like, I'm greatly inspired and like lifted up by the voice of Kelly Thompson, running out of the 3rd district from Fort Wayne. Her message is quite powerful, running like a mother. And if you're saying this, you have my full support. There's many other candidates that inspire me. They have contested primaries.
Of course, we're not going to remember everybody, right? Because we're working off of memory here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of candidates. There's so many. Like
we can just get a few highlights, and obviously, like I said, we're not going to remember everybody. Yeah. And this is not a diss to anybody that's not mentioned. We're just giving this as information for the voters.
State Senate level, so at least in my area, Kirsten Root is amazing.
Which district is she in?
20. Crap, what was it? 21. 21.
21.
Yeah, 21 districts. So that's like Kokomo, Tipton, and like the west side of Hamilton County. There's also Joe Kazlaz running in the same race, and he's a really, really charming guy. Right. Nate Stout, if you're in the Tipton area and the Kokomo area, Nate Stout's amazing grassroots candidate. Who are some other ones? Sarah Gullion, Muncie's the city councilwoman. Obviously, she's running to be my rep, and she's got my full endorsement, of course. Yeah, 100%. She's going to be the fighter we need in the State House. What are some other ones? There's so many. But
I know there's a ton.
Yeah.
But I just think people, I get this question a lot, right? Like people ask me, they say, hey, we think that you're authentic. You seem like you're a truth teller. Mm-hmm. Who do you like? And just as a Hoosier and as an individual, whenever I say things like this, right, I want to be able to speak from the heart and say, right, like these are the values that I align with. And therefore, these are the people that I see those values in that I
Yeah. Jack Chance, I got to mention him 100%. And I'm sure there's going to be people like 5 minutes from now and be like, dang, I should have.
There's always going to be that.
If my policies really jive well with the progressive populist grassroots movement and that candidate aligns with those, like the idea, more so than anything, don't like see us politicians, people running to be a public servant. Just see us as a list of policies. Because like the thing is, the most evil politician is very charismatic. They're very like Donald Trump, I'm told.
They don't tell the truth.
Yeah, no, like they do a thing called lying.
They omit, right? So they'll glaze over it and they're like, I don't love what ICE is doing. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they won't say abolish ICE. They're like, I don't love it. It's not a good look. But I'm not going to go as far as to say abolish it.
Do not vote on personalities. You will be disappointed every single time when they disappoint you in office. Sure. So vote on policies. Like if anything, like if it was just like on the ballot, they had like their hot 5 takes or hey, here's my 5 policies, and like that's what you vote on election day. That's 100%. What it should. You should vote on a list but you should just see them as a list of bullet points. Now, like as far as personalities goes, it's just how you articulate that message, that vision that you want to bring to Congress or State House, State Senate, or whatever. So personalities are obviously a huge part. I mean, that's why we got Donald Trump.
Sure.
But mostly, the way I critique my candidates that are running to represent me is, do you uphold the standards that I put onto you? And like you have to earn my vote. You don't own my vote.
I like that, earn it, because I'm very much one that I feel like I walk the walk, and I want people to call. Like if I ever do anything that you're like, call me out, call me, email me, like call me out in person, call me out online, because I most likely didn't do it on purpose. And then it gives me the opportunity to clarify that. But I'm like you, right? Like I want to hear from the people, because I would see myself as a civil servant. I basically lived my whole life being an advocate. I wasn't aware of that. And this is why I'm asking you these types of questions, right? Because I think for us as individuals that want a better future, right? Like it's imperative that we look into these people and be like, what's your track record? Like, were you protesting at the beginning? And if you weren't, why?
Yeah.
Like, did you jump on the bus late? And that's okay. But then why?
Yeah, why were you gone?
Why were you gone? Yeah. Like, why weren't you in this fight at the beginning? Yeah. Like, did it take you a little bit more time? And that's okay. But be able to speak on that.
Yeah.
And why aren't you pushing so hard? Like, if you're going to say you're a progressive, then why aren't you pushing so hard? Like, these are the type of things that I'm going to be looking for when I go to vote myself, is like, do I think you're full of shit? Do you walk the walk? Have you shown a history of this? Whatever it is. Like, if you say you're an advocate in something, what's your track record? Can I go back and find on social media, for example, like, oh, hey, they're about this noise because a year ago they said XYZ. What do you think about that sort of stuff?
Whenever speaking facts.
I know I'm just like rolling on, but I'm not trying to make this about me.
There's been so many times, and not to make it about me, but like I've noticed it as well. Like there would be like, oh, like the Women's March, a year ago. Why was I the only candidate that showed up? Like there's so many like different groups of like, hey, we're having a feminist meeting in Muncie or something like that. And I'm like, all right, well, why am I the only candidate that ever shows up? Why is, if there's a meeting for like, I mentioned like the ABA place in Hillcroft, I mentioned the daycare place. Why am I the only candidate that's running that's been to these places? Like, why? Like, I don't know.
Well, and I think
that hears them out, hears out these communities.
Myself as an example, right? Like just as an example among candidates, like if people ask me questions and say, right, like you seem like you were active and then you kind of fell back. Why is that? Then I would tell them I injured myself and I was doing physical therapy so that I literally could not walk and could not march. I also have small children. And childcare is a problem in this country, like horrific. So I may not always be physically present at some of these events because I can't get childcare and my children have disabilities. No one's going to watch them. So you may see me more online, or I may not be technically in person as much as you, for example, right? And I've mad respect for you because you're like out there all the time. And I appreciate that.
I'm trying to be.
But I think it's significant, right? Like when you're boiling down these candidates of the types of things, like how are they advocating? How are they present? Do they have a disability? Do they not? Do they advocate for the disability population? In what ways are they showing up as an individual and as a candidate? And if they are late to the party in any capacity that you think that they should be there, right?
Exactly.
Because like I said, like I think that's valid, right? But for those that would say, oh, hey man, like you're being a little rough because, I don't know, said candidate maybe has a small child or this, that, or the other thing. Do you think they should test them on that and be like, right, like I fight for autism, right? And in what ways are you showing up for that community? In what ways do I know that you support this? Or are you just showing up for a photo op and then you're out?
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, you definitely hold them to.
So let's like dig into that a bit more with you right? Like, I mean, you're a single guy, you don't have kids, right?
I'm not married. I do have
not that you're aware of.
No, yeah, I do not.
Okay.
I do not have any children that I'm aware of. But yeah, I'm not married.
So you think, like for you right now, like part of your campaign, part of your policy, the reason that you're out there doing these things is because you can.
I care, and yeah, I quit my job as a paramedic.
You quit your job too.
To focus on the cause, but like working, that's the financial, that takes edge, discipline. The edge that the billionaire class has over us, or even just like upper working class.
And I'm going to capitalize on that too. I think it says a lot about a candidate. If they're willing to give up their job, like give up their livelihood to pursue this, that shows real dedication to the cause.
Yeah, I mean, I give my life to the cause. Like I'm struggling every day. Like there are days where like I'm just financially. Like it's. Thankfully I have family that supports me because they're true believers to the cause that I am, and thank goodness for them that allows me to do that. But yeah, I did quit my job.
I did not know you quit your job. I think that's significant. That's why I'm saying I quit mine too, not because I'm tagging on you, but I do think things like this are important to talk about, right? Like what's your commitment to the cause? How far are you willing to go? Are you just giving people lip service? Do you come from money? Are you struggling? Are you like, ramen noodle people? And I think we're ramen noodle.
Oh, 100% I am. Yeah. Like even as a paramedic, like, you just see the like worst stuff in your entire life, like going to the most brutal, trigger warning, like car crashes every single day. You're going to like fires, you're going to shootings, and then what? You get paid $20 an hour. Like, oh, what are we talking about? Even that is like not enough, like for any job, let alone like the horrendous stuff that we'd see every single day, day in and day out, and night in, night out. It could 24-hour shifts, but like, just horrendous stuff. And so even if I was working, it would still be modest, And I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm not, no one in my family has ever been elected. My grandparents were not, sworn politicians. Like I'm the first of this group, and just like it's just because I care. It's just because I, I want to lift up the voices of working class people, and I realize what's at stake. Right. I'm in this race because no one else was fighting for the way that we need them to fight. Everyone is failing to meet the moment. And the fact that, I'm fighting this cause tooth and nail every single day, and that there are other candidates that, hey, they disagree. They don't think healthcare is a human right. They don't think money in politics is such a big deal, and they take corporate money, and they don't they support the genocide. It's like the fact that they're in this race. It's all about ego. For me, I would die for the cause if that meant that we got an inch closer to our goal of a shared humanity and dignity in our world. They're like, to them, they can't say the same thing. And I could sniff out a non-believer to the cause, like, okay, you're in this race for yourself. I'm in the race for you. Like I would fight for you harder than you would fight for yourself, because ultimately I care about your health care more, and you're fine with paying a corporate tax that would kill hundreds of thousands of others.
I find that interesting because I was talking to Mario Foradori the other day, and we had this conversation, and he was like, I kind of had to ask myself when I'm entering this race, like, what am I doing it for and how far would I go? And he said, it's going to sound crazy. And I was like, probably not. And he's like, well, I basically, because I was part of the Black Lives Matter movement and Terre Haute and all that. And I was like, right. And he said, I asked myself, would I be willing to go to jail for this? And I said, yes. And I was like, well, I'm going to tell you why that's not crazy. Because I asked myself when I started running, now, mind you, I told you, I don't know if I said this here, but I told you outside, my family's been fighting oppression since the American Revolution.
Yeah.
I feel like it's baked into my DNA. Like that's part of my autism too. Like part of my autism diagnosis was social justice. Like I just can't look away. That's part of why I'm here.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I'll tell you why that's not crazy, because I'm willing to die for the cause, because I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my kids.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for like the neighborhood kids. I'm doing it for the other disabled people in the community that can't speak for themselves. So it sounds like you're basically coming from a very similar mission there.
Yeah. I've given the first No Kings Day. I was speaking in Kokomo. It was a great crowd. Shout out to Operation Blue Horizon and the Howard County Dems. But there were 3 armed gunmen that were harassing people, and I gave a fiery speech, like quoting Fred Hampton, saying, like, repeat after me, I am a revolutionary, I am a revolutionary, and like really going at the fascists, calling them out. And the whole time there were 3 people with AR-15s mean mugging me the entire time. And I was like, I'm just going to say what I got to say. Whatever happens, happens. And it was like, my family, my girlfriend and people around me were like, that took some guts. That they like those people like went there to intimidate. They were already yelling at people, and I was like, yeah. I basically showed some people like, oh, no, I'm willing to do like whatever happens, happens. There's a famous quote by what was it? The president that got shot and he died of infection. Was it Hayes? No, I don't know. Anyway, he said like, hey, you can stop political assassination as much as you can stop getting struck by lightning. There's small things you can do to prevent, like don't stand next to a big tree or a metal object, or, maybe wear like a body vest or something. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then funny enough about the reason why that quote's so popular is because like 2 weeks later he got shot. But like at that, I'm staying in the same philosophy. Like, what if they really wanted to? They would be able to do it. You might as well just fight. Live and fight like you're already dead. And by that point, you're more likely to come out surviving, for one, and you're also more likely to accomplish the people's mission.
Well, I think right now, too, there are people, and, I'm going to ask you this, too, because I'm curious if this is where you're operating from. I'm a millennial, and I graduated. Well, actually, I was in my first year of college when the Twin Towers were hit. I had a lot of people taken from my class to war and all this sort of thing. I feel like for my entire life, we have been at war to some capacity.
Yeah.
And now I'm watching us do a deep dive into fascism. And I'm a student of history. I know all this stuff. And I'm like, hell no. So I feel like part of my job, like since I didn't actually serve my nation, like this is my chance. Like this is my chance to try and do something.
Yeah, you're serving it right now.
For the greater good, right? And I've got nieces and I've got a daughter, and I'll be goddamned. I'll tell you what, like I'm not having it. So I'm going to be straight up resistance all day, every day until we can stomp these fuckers out.
100%. Yeah, all my generation. I'm Gen Z.
Yeah.
All we know is school shooter drills, foreign wars overseas, and the system never really working for us. Like my political awakening was in 2016 when we had a rigged presidential primary. All right. And the first presidential primary I was able to vote in, 2020, by the time it got to Indiana, literally every conservative Democrat dropped out of the race and endorsed the corporate candidate of Joe Biden against Bernie Sanders. And like they were also like feeding media questions to the establishment and not Bernie. And I was like, okay, well, that was a little shady. Like 2016 literally rigged, 2020 pretty shady, and coming back up to more modern day of like 2024, we didn't have a primary. There were two other candidates outside Joe Biden, and it was Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. And I went to the polls 2024, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, even though it was a losing. There's no way Marianne Williamson was going to win. I wanted to vote against the genocide. And Indiana, in all its wisdom, took the primary options off the ballot. And it was just like all you had to do is vote for Biden. That's all you had to do. So I just left it empty. I left it empty. I'm like, I'm not voting for this guy. Never will you catch me voting for that person in the primary.
That brings up an interesting issue. I'm very much anti-bi because I feel like he's not a Hoosier. He's not from here. He's got all this dirty money in his campaign finances. I just don't like it. It just turns my stomach as a Hoosier. And I also don't like that the Democratic Party is essentially shoving him down our throat. And like I said, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Blythe. Just for the principle.
On a standalone. If he was running unopposed. If he was going unopposed, I would still be saying it.
Yeah. And so here's this question that's emerging among progressives right now. It's like, if he wins and they force him down our throats, then what do we do? And so I've been having a lot of conversations with Republicans because I'm from a very deep red area and I'm curious and we're having conversations about stuff like this. I'm like, hey, what do you know about this guy? What do you think about this guy? And they're like, absolutely not. So now what I'm hearing is from the deep red Republicans, we're talking like Republican light and MAGA. They're like, not a chance in hell. And you also have the progressives saying, not a chance in hell.
Yeah, no, it's a losing cause.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I don't have any faith that they're not going to
election in Indiana because, my personal belief is Hoosiers just don't like to be told what the hell to do ever.
Well, like so often, candidates like the fact that you can take genocide blood money and Epstein money, it seems like you're just not even trying to win the vote of us progressive people, young people, even like MAGA or like, MAGA and then disaffected Republicans. Reminds me of a quote by Reverend Al Sharpton of, there are those in the Democratic Party that drive the party further and further to the right in the name of a winning strategy in the hopes that progressive forces, people of color, will voluntarily turn into invisible people. Now, campaigns like ours, grassroots campaigns, we take time to listen to those invisible people, the political homeless, the people that don't feel like the Democratic Party or their politicians speak to the issues. They don't see themselves in those things. They don't see themselves in the policies that are enacted in Congress or the State House. But oftentimes, those forces that drive that party further and further to the right, they don't even try to earn your support. It's like, hey, what are you going to do? Vote for me? And they keep losing. For 20 years, we keep losing in the state, and the fascists win. They would rather tank the whole boat than let progressives take control of the ship to steer us away from the iceberg. That is fascism. Because by the end of the day, the fascists, even though they say that, they hate the Republicans more, it's effectively you still kneecap the popular movement, the youth movement of every civil rights, the anti-war movement in Vietnam. Right now it's just the Palestinian, genocide. The youth they guide the way in that sense of here's what's right. You could either get on board or else we're all going to fucking die. And they would rather die. They would rather have the fascist power because they are both the establishment Democrats and the fascist. They are both bought by the same owners. And you can either serve the people or you can serve the owners. You don't have two masters. All we are saying is serve the people. Serve the people, you will win. You fight for the people will fight for you. People fight harder when they are fighting for something and not just against something, the lesser of two evils. So all we were saying is, hey, in a democracy, be popular. That's really, it's not radical. All we want is some health care and not do we're not asking for the moon here. We're saying serve us like your job. Do your effing job and then you will win. Just concede on some things. There's it's a give and take and they always harp on us progressives you guys are asking too much. How are you going to work together in Congress? You don't even work with us. what are you talking? You would rather lose than work to get you of all people have the least amount to say on this issue because they can't even cave when we're 100% right. We'll bring in all the receipts and they'll still preach the choir of like party line.
Massey and Ro Khanna.
Exactly. They're perfect examples of working together.
I think actually if you pick progressive candidates that stand on their values, because I truly think that's what Hoosiers want. Because Hoosiers are like that. Like at the end of the day, you can fill a room and it doesn't matter if you've got like, IU and Purdue fans in the same room. Like as long as you can stand on your morals and your principles, like they can still go have a beer at the end of the day. Yeah. But the people that Hoosiers really detest are the ones that don't have a line, don't have a clear line, won't tell the truth, don't stand up for their morals. Like you would much more likely have a MAGA and a progressive be able to have a conversation and solve a problem. Yeah. Because at least they're coming from points of action. Like both sides are pissed off because they want action and they want change. So all of these like middle of the road people that are like, nah, well, like it's going to piss people off if I say genocide. Those are not the people that you need.
They're not meeting the moment.
No, you don't need those people sitting in positions where they are either authoring or voting on policy that will affect you in housing, in childcare, in women's rights and reproductive rights, and like the whole gamut. Because if they can't stand their ground on one thing that you care about before you even get to the election, how the hell do you think they're going to stand on business when they're in there?
100%. Yeah. I mean, like, and overall, the electorate is on our side, the progressive side. Like, they're just progressives that don't know it yet. They're just bad with labels. The American electorate. Like, yeah, like I've had more Republicans tell me like, oh, well, I'd vote. I've never voted Democrat a day in my life, but I'll vote for you. I've gone on like libertarian podcasts, seemingly like somewhat enemy territory. On social issues, they're good, fiscally conservative. And they're like, dude, you undoubtedly have my support because like you're just fighting a class war. And that's what we're in right now. It's us versus the billionaire elite. It's us versus the parasites that break down our unions. It's, and why I think Trump won in 2024 is because he said a lie and then a smear. He said, you are hurting. Which, Kamala Harris, like he said, this economy is the worst it's ever been. And Harris was like, actually, it's the best it's ever been. Keep voting for us. What she should, Donald Trump took that and he's like, listen, you are still hurting. Look at here. She's bragging that this economy is the best it's ever been. You are hurting. I am listening to you. And the reason for your hurting is because of trans people, immigrants, and women. We're going to win as Democrats when we say, listen, you are hurting. I am listening to you, but it's not whatever he said, the trans people, immigrants, women. They'll literally say, this is Trump, he said, they're dangerous minority groups. We're going to win when we say there is a dangerous minority group. But it's not the one Donald Trump tells you about, or any of the Republicans. It's the top 1%. It's the billionaire class. It's the parasites that, as I said, break down our unions, send our jobs overseas, and they bribe our politicians like Donald Trump and the other MAGA politicians like Victoria Spartz. So we need to organize together as a grassroots movement and fight for the people's policy and fight for the working class, not the donor class, not the Epstein class.
Yeah, we need to rise together. I'm all about that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our only winning strategy is to get the progressives in there because they're people of the people and they really care.
It's the only way to effectively combat fascism. You're not going to beat fascism with diet fascism. Simple.
I've got another question for you. I know we've talked about a lot of things. What would you like to see as a Hoosier and as a voter? Like, where would you like to see the U.S. be at, say, year 2030? If we can affect change, what would you like that change to look like?
2030, hopefully we own the White House. We own the Senate. We own the House, obviously. And that's 2 years into a presidential administration. I want us to, Beto O'Rourke has a quote. He says, when we take back power, we need to drive that car like we stole it. And I love that because, hey, they're breaking the laws left, every way to affect their fascist policies. They just grift to make money. We need to do basically almost the same thing in the sense, but fight for the people. I don't care if the president has to stack the Supreme Court in order for us to get women's rights back and codified in the Constitution, to protect gay rights, the LGBTQ community. we need to make sure we codify those rights. We need to make sure that we have healthcare. We need to make sure that we have sweeping election reform. We need constitutional amendments for term limits, money out of politics, all these things. So like by 2030, we need to make sure that these things are being fought for. And we're not going to get them with a corporate Democrat like Gavin Newsom. We're going to get it by having people like AOC or maybe even Jon Stewart or Ro Khanna or something like that. That's why primaries are important. May 5th is Indiana's primary, and there's a clear distinction of vision. It's, you either have vision and you prosper, or you don't have vision and we all fail. It's life and death. So by 2030, I'd hope with this larger movement, can come together and enact those policies. Right now, it's stop the bleeding. We need to take back the House, reverse Project 2025, and stop the terrible disaster that's going on with this regime. And back in 2028, we need to make sure we seize the White House, and we need to do anything, like whatever it takes. I don't even care, to make sure that human rights are being fought for. Yeah. But he's like, 100%. We need to make sure that human rights are off the table. We need to make sure they're codified in the Constitution. Because, we have a rogue Supreme Court right now that's looking at Obergefell v. Hodges, and it's only a matter of time, I'll say. They need to be emboldened. If we have a free and fair election, I don't think there's anything stopping this progressive movement from winning nationwide. It's on the Democrats to make sure we have good primaries. It's on... oh my gosh, it's on fucking Trump and MAGA and the state legislators and the governors to make sure we have a free and fair election this November. And if they don't, I think we need to be upfront. All right, we'll prepare for a general strike. If we do not have a free and fair, if he says, stop the count, they're illegal voting, general strike immediately. Do escalate. If they're going to escalate that much, our democracy gets stolen. He's joked with Zelensky, saying the reason why we're in Iran. He joked with Zelensky a few months back, or even a year ago at this point, said oh, well, you're at war and you guys didn't have an election. I might have to look into that. He literally said that, oh, we might have to look into that. He tried to say, oh, that was just a joke. I would only be a dictator on day one. And here he is breaking the Constitution, and that's just called Tuesday now these days, So we need to make sure that we prevent the next Trump. We need to impeach the entire administration that has committed crimes, and most of them have. And we also need to make sure we have rules and, rails to make sure that we have a secure democracy. And that looks like having ranked choice voting, having healthy third parties, getting money out of politics, automatic voter registration. They're trying to make it harder and harder to vote with the so-called Save America Act, which would make it significantly harder, if not impossible for some people, for such people like women, trans people, because you'd have to bring in not identity, proof of citizenship, which is two very different things. So we need to make sure we stop that right there and undo it. No poll taxes, which is basically, hey, if you can't buy a passport, which most Americans can't, then how are you going to go to the election day and onto the voting booth with a passport you were not able to afford?
Plus, that affects the disability community because let's say you're laid up in your bed, maybe they switch locations on you like they did in Texas, and then you physically can't make it there in time. There's just all kinds of problems with stuff like that.
100%.
I was just going to say, for me personally, as a Hoosier and as a voter, one thing that keeps standing out in my mind is you need to kind of operate like you're planting a seed that will grow into a tree that you may not sit under. So I think we need to pick politicians right now that have that sort of mindset of this is going to be a long fight. It's not about them. They're doing it in an unselfish way so that one day maybe their grandkids can sit underneath that oak tree and 100%. Truly enjoy the American dream.
I 100% agree. And Bernie Sanders inspired a whole generation of people, much like myself and many others.
Oh, I'm a Bernie fan.
Oh yeah. And the way he inspired so many people, there's this whole wave, look across the nation, there's a whole wave of people that were inspired by Bernie. And I mean, all people, but I might say especially young people. And one of the more proud moments I have on this campaign is that I hope to do that, for my district, inspiring the young people of the state, my district. And there's a lot of high school students, with the ICE walkouts that happened a month ago. There was a lot of people that already knew me and even not even in my district, here in Indianapolis. And I was like, how do you know me? They were like, dude, you were like the abolish ICE person that I know. And I was like, thank you. And they were like, no, thank you. And I'm like, that's a very proud moment of mine, is that we are inspiring the next generations to fight back and teach them civic engagement that we weren't really taught until Bernie Sanders came along. Like, no, you can make a difference. Not me, us. And like, us together, like there's nothing more powerful than when people get together, because ultimately the power of the people is greater than the people in power, as John Lewis once said. So we got to get together. Like, it's not just enough to mobilize, like, oh, show up to one No King's Day protest and that's it. It's harder to organize routine action. People like patterns. Show up to a weekly or bi-weekly meeting and affect change in your local community. Revolution starts in the mind. The first revolution happens in your mind. You change a few minds, you can change your community. You change enough minds, you can change the world. And ultimately, we do need to change the world to see the justice that we want to see. Hence why our races are so important for Congress, because we live in the wealthiest nation in the entire planet, in the history of the planet. But never before, like, we don't get to see the benefits of that, because never before have we lived in a system where so few had so much and so many had so little. We need to change that. We need to have a system that represents all people and not just that top 1%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, because I feel like, not that I like to see myself as older, right? But I am now more of an older person. Like, so I am trying to find ways in my campaign, or just who I am as an individual, that I'm like, how can I give back? How can I influence people? And so hopefully I'm inspiring change and courage, because courage is contagious. And I hope that, if for nothing else, I will inspire other girls one day to be like, you know what? I remember this lady once, like, she was a single mom with, autistic kids, and look what she did.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's not important necessarily like how far we go, but just planting that seed in some kid's mind of like, once I watched this normal person do this big thing, and that mattered to me, and that's encouraging me to do that big thing.
Extraordinary things happen by ordinary people every day.
Yeah.
What's extraordinary is the ability for people to rise to the occasion and meet the moment. We must facilitate that and nurture that. And it's as you plant the seed, not only with ideas of politics, like, yeah, you might not agree with me on this issue, but I talk enough for you to like understand it enough to be able for you to have your own, open your eyes to it. So next time, if it does impact them personally, they're like, wow, maybe that is right. But also encouraging the next generation of this, not just policies, but just action, facilitate that, planting that seed to encourage others.
Civic mindedness, that like, this is your nation. What do you want? What would you like to see in the future?
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up, because I know I've taken a ton of your time. I always ask everybody that comes on the show for all of the things that we talked about today, and I hope I hit everything, because I was really trying hard to make sure that we hit like every single topic that's coming up people would care about, right? If people can't remember anything else that you said today, if they just pick one thing, what thing would you like them to remember about you? Not you, the candidate, you, the individual. Who's Jackson Franklin?
Someone that is doing their best to fight for all people, not exclusionary politics, but just unapologetically fighting for what's right and not fighting for the forces of corporate greed or imperialism or colonialism, but fighting, as I keep saying repeatedly, unapologetically for the working people and not the donor class. We need to have a system that represents all of us, not just that top 1%. And I really hope I can leave any amount of impact, positive impact on that goal to make sure that we have our human rights that should be guaranteed to us at birth. So just making sure we push that needle ahead and making sure that we will have a system that truly places people over profits. This government is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, for the billionaires. So please join us in many other campaigns if you're wherever you're from, and help us create that future, that brighter future we all know we deserve and that we believe in.
And where can they find you?
You can find us by going to jacksonfranklinforcongress.com. You can sign up to volunteer, sign up to donate. This is a grassroots campaign. I'm not going to be able to raise like $100,000 in 10 days of announcing or anything, because I'm never going to sell out to any corporations or APAC. But we need working class people to get involved. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We must all get involved. Politics. If you don't do politics, politics sure as hell will do you. So please go to jacksonfranklinforcongress.com. To also, on top of that, we have a calendar. If you go to our calendar, you could see all the events we're going to. Meet me at one of my town halls or these other events. You can see our long, extensive policy page. I'm very proud of that. I wrote it nearly all of it by myself. And it's ever expanding. So if you want to learn more about the positions I take or wanted more elaboration on. And we also have polls for every single one because they're all very popular. So I'm bragging at that point. But please go to jacksonfranklinforcongress.com, support us, or share our social media post, just anywhere, whatever social media app you have, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. Type in Jackson Franklin for Congress. We'll pop up. Make sure to give us a follow and share our post. It goes a long way. So thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, yeah. I love this. I love having these real conversations. And I love that you showed up not just as a candidate, but as an individual, as a Hoosier, and as a voter. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.
We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.